Chapter 76. Hello. The guy in front of him was obviously also from Zhuzhu. Chu Chen was not surprised at all that he could recognize him. He waved his hand and withdrew the shields from both men. The carriage now seemed to have become a safe area, and there were no more sounds of monsters attacking. Feng Xiaokaiu, this is my name, I'm from the Magic City. You are my fan. No. The guy in front of him who called himself Feng Xiaokaiu actually took out his ID card from his pocket, but his words now seemed very incoherent. Are you here to attend the special training camp too? Chu Chen asked. Yes. My talent is at the human level of the special sequence. Of course, you can't compare with Brother Chu, but I am qualified. Feng Xiaokaiu extended his hand again to show friendliness. I've known you for a long time. I've watched the video of your battle more than 100 times. I really admire you. It's my great honor. Chu Chen also stretched out his hand and shook his. There was still ice element left on the other person's hand, which looked very cold. I never thought that I would be saved by you. Brother Chu, you are not only my idol now, but also my benefactor. Feng Xiaokaiu seemed to be very familiar with the place. He sat opposite Chu Chen and breathed heavily. The battle just now had indeed consumed a lot of his energy. Brother Chu, do you like tea? Suddenly, his eyes fell on the tea in Chu Chen's hand, and then he took out a pile of different kinds of tea from his storage ring. Judging from the packaging of these teas, each one is of great value. With these items, plus Feng Xiaokaiu's clothes and his own outstanding temperament, Chu Chen could already infer that the other party came from a very wealthy family. Come here, big brother, I'll make you some. Feng Xiaokaiu made tea for Chu Chen with a flattering look on his face, and kept praising the video of Chu Chen's battle. It goes without saying that the other party must have other intentions. You like tea, too? Chu Chen took a sip and tasted it. Although it was not as good as the tea he had at Xiang Hanhai's place, it was also very mellow and of high quality, which was simply incomparable to the ordinary tea he brought with him. It's okay. Mainly because my dad told me to bring more things with me when I go out. No matter if I can use them or not, I must pick the best ones. This is so that I can share with you when I meet someone as respectable as you, Brother Chu, on the road. Feng Xiaokaiu did not forget to praise Chu Chen while drinking tea. You should just call me Chu Chen. You don't have to be so polite. What I did just now was just a matter of convenience. Chu Chen smiled. He was not used to others flattering him so deliberately. It's okay, Brother Chu. I really respect you. You know, it's not easy to meet people from your own country in such a big space. We are all family. Why don't we just travel together and take care of each other? Brother Chu, I have a lot of good supplies in my storage ring, including food, drink, and sleep. There is nothing I can't bring you, just let me follow you, and you won't have to worry about anything in your life. Feng Xiaokaiu finally stated his purpose, which was to hold on to Chu Chen's support. Okay, let's go together. Chu Chen smiled lightly. He usually traveled alone and would occasionally feel bored after a long time. Besides, even if he didn't agree to go with us, what would happen? We were all going to the same destination, and we were all going to take this path. The subway continued to pass through the dark tunnel, and then it became stable, with no more sounds of monsters attacking. Not long after, the harsh friction sound was heard again, and the speed of the subway slowed down again. It's time to reach the next stop. Chu Chen and Feng Xiaokaiu looked out the window at the same time, wondering what would exist at this site. But unexpectedly, the site was very quiet, without any unusual noises. Brother Chu, I'll go down and take a look. There was no movement, so Feng Xiaokaiu volunteered to stand up. He quietly came to the car door and slowly stuck his head out. After nothing unexpected happened, he slowly put his feet on the platform and looked around. Brother Chu, come and see. Not long after Feng Xiaokaiu went downstairs, he suddenly shouted. Chu Chen immediately got off the car and looked in the direction where Feng Xiaokaiu's voice came from. He saw that the front of the subway car was completely blocked by a wall. Want to try to break down this wall? Feng Xiaokaiu was eager to try. Forget it. Everything here is specially reinforced. The sealed area obviously doesn't intend to let us leave. Chu Chen looked at the coordinates in his hand. The direction pointed by the pointer was no longer the direction of the subway, but the location of the elevator exit. The two of them walked slowly up the escalator, and the lights that were originally flickering suddenly went out. Whoa! Feng Xiaokai suddenly screamed, and he was suddenly frightened by Chu Chen's shining golden eyes in the darkness. Chu Chen silently placed a layer of jade shield on both of them. The light emitted by the two jade shields was enough to illuminate the road around them. Brother Chu, is this one of your abilities? It makes me feel so safe. Seeing a layer of protective shield surrounding his body again, Feng Xiaokai felt the same sense of security again. With this shield, I feel like any monster can be easily defeated. Feng Xiaokai's face was full of excitement. He could clearly feel the powerful force contained in the Yuzhang shield, which could soothe the disordered mind and give people peace of mind. The battle after that will be up to you. Chu Chen folded his arms across his chest, a slight smile on his face. No problem. The ice spear made of ice crystals appeared in Feng Xiaokai's hand again. He took the lead and walked in front of Chu Chen to clear the way. After taking the elevator to the upper floor, there is still some distance from the ground. Wow, wow! For some reason, the sound of rushing water suddenly came from the walls on both sides. They're coming! Chu Chen stopped and sensed the surroundings. He could sense that the killers hiding in the dark were beginning to stir. All around, dark, shadow-like monsters slowly emerged from the darkness. You can't tell how many of them there are, you can only see eyes of various colors densely packed in the darkness. Leave it to me, Brother Chu. Feng Xiaokai's energy began to be stimulated, and Chu Chen could clearly feel the temperature around him dropping rapidly. Ha! Feng Xiaokai exhaled a breath of cold air, and began to swing the ice spear in his hand at a high speed. The whistling sound of wind and the waving ice crystals instantly formed, and a huge frost tornado was swaying on the ground. Dense and tiny ice crystals flew in all directions, sinking into the darkness and instantly causing countless flashes of blood. Chapter 77. Feng Xiaokai's attack directly angered the surrounding enemies. They suddenly jumped up, and thousands of figures flashed in all directions. Sharp roars came out of their mouths from time to time, and it was unclear what emotions they were expressing. Feng Xiaokai swung the ice spear, creating a sharp arc of light in the air, instantly cutting the first group of people who rushed over in half. Then he rushed to Chu Chen's side again and killed all the monsters coming from behind Chu Chen in the same way. However, the enemy's attacks continued, and dense screams were heard in his ears. Relying on the jade shield, Feng Xiaokai could completely let go and was not afraid of the opponent's attacks. But even so, it was still a bit difficult for him to take care of Chu Chen and face enemies from all directions alone. Soon his breathing began to quicken again. You better take care of yourself. Chu Chen didn't plan to force the guy in front of him any longer. The ground began to shake, and thick rock ridges instantly broke out of the ground, and dense ripples spread in all directions. It directly became an untouchable area around him and Feng Xiaokai. Although the number of enemies was large and continuous, no matter how they rushed, they would only be turned into a pool of flesh and blood by the attack of the rock ridge. Sometimes, victory is not achieved simply by numbers. Feng Xiaokai was dumbfounded to see Chu Chen exert such powerful strength yet still have a calm expression on his face. Only by seeing it with your own eyes can you feel the true extraordinariness of this person. Feng Xiaokai shook his head. Is this still a human being? There's no point in continuing to stalemate with them. We have to move forward. Chu Chen walked in front of Feng Xiaokai, ignoring the attacks of the enemies in front of him, because the Yuzhang shield would make everyone make way. Looking at his back, Feng Xiaokai could only swallow hard, and then ran over closely. Walk all the way and the exit to the ground is not far away. The enemies piled up around the two of them to the point where they could hardly squeeze through. Feng Xiaokai could even clearly see the monsters lying on top through the shield, with fishy green turbid water flowing from their mouths, which was disgusting. When they reached the exit, Chu Chen moved his hands, and the jade shields on him and Feng Xiaokai immediately turned into golden light and spread in all directions. The two powerful forces overlapped and pushed forward, directly turning all the monsters within a radius of hundreds of meters into pieces. Feng Xiaokai opened the door, and when they walked out, the door behind them closed again. It also cuts off the pursuit of the enemy behind. As for the scene in front of them, it was an abandoned city with ruins. The tall buildings that once stood in a row now collapsed, with doors and windows broken. Most of the city's greenery was burned out by the flames, and the surviving vegetation was left with only bare branches, completely lifeless. The entire street was deserted, filled with desolation and decay. Bang! Bang! The ground beneath my feet shook slightly again. Feng Xiaoqiu looked around and didn't find anything that could cause the vibration. In the back, Chu Chen turned around, the door behind them had disappeared, and a huge figure was walking towards them on the street in the distance. The giant was about 8 meters tall, his face and entire body covered in red armor. His sturdy body was like a small mountain, and every step he took caused the ground to shake. Is it a demon beast? Such a strong aura! Feng Xiaoqiu frowned. The giant in the distance exuded an extremely dangerous aura, making him feel like he was facing a formidable enemy. The giant seemed to have noticed the two of them. It suddenly stopped and just stood there watching. Buzz buzz buzz. Suddenly, a dazzling red light came out of the giant's left hand. It slowly stretched out its left hand, and all the abandoned vehicles on the surrounding streets were lifted high into the sky by a force. Under its guidance, hundreds of cars instantly crashed towards Chu and Chen's heads. Oh no! Feng Xiaoqiu subconsciously protected his head, and thick ice walls suddenly stood around them. But the sky above their heads could not be taken into account. A huge rock ridge rose again from the ground around them. After unlocking the second constellation, the rock ridge that Chu Chen could now use was much taller and thicker than before. The ripple attack of the rock element once again spread out from the center of the rock ridge to the surrounding areas. The vehicles that fell down were instantly blown away as soon as they touched the ripples. It broke into countless pieces and fell to the ground. It looks like it's coming for me, you should hide here first. Chu Chen held the heavy and huge Qinyan spear in his hand. The strength of the giant in front of him was far beyond what ordinary students could bear. Perhaps, the people above adjusted the difficulty just for him? Chu Chen's figure turned into a golden afterimage and rushed in front of the giant. The Qinyan spear burst out with terrifying power and instantly blasted towards the giant's head. Subconsciously, the giant's two sturdy arms shone with a red light, and the armor covering its body became thicker and stronger. It blocked its two hands in front of itself. Bang! A huge sound was heard, and the spear pierced the air, creating a violent gust of wind. The power of the attack was detonated and began to be released in all directions. Crack, crack! Obvious cracks appeared on the armor on the giant's arm, and Qinyan's spear continued to penetrate like a cone. Gradually, a gap was pierced in the giant's arm. The huge force continued to surge towards the opponent's head, colliding with the armor on the giant's head. A shrill scream began to emanate from the giant's mouth. Its voice was like a mixture of human and beast. Feng Xiaoqiu, who was hiding in the ice wall in the distance, covered his ears tightly. This level of battle was not something he could endure. Bang! In the end, the giant's huge body retreated rapidly backwards and hit a ruined building. The armor on its body shattered into pieces and scattered all over the ground, and blood flowed like a river. It's not over yet. Chu Chen hasn't heard the system's experience prompt sound yet. He flew towards the giant again, and the thousand rock spear in his hand continued to pierce into the opponent's chest with violent force. A miserable cry burst out of the giant's mouth again, and it stretched out its hand angrily, wanting to crush Chu Chen with its last breath. However, its body was no longer strong enough to support it in launching any attacks, and the huge force from the spear tip continued to flow into its body. The giant could not struggle for too long, and along with the huge hole piercing through its chest, its last breath was taken away. Feng Xiaoqiu, who was watching this scene, had a dull expression on his face. From Chu Chen's attack to the giant's death, the whole process took only more than 10 seconds. If I were facing that huge creature, I would probably have to run for my life. Chapter 78. Chu Chen and Feng Xiaoqiu then walked in the direction of the coordinate pointer. As they shuttled through the streets, an interesting scene took place. The entire city actually experienced different seasons at the same time. In the direction the pointer pointed, all the buildings and streets were covered with snow. Scattered snowflakes could be vaguely seen floating in the air, and as they approached, the temperature around them was dropping rapidly. Brother Chu, are you cold? I have a crystal stone containing the element of fire here. You can keep warm by putting it on your body. Feng Xiaoqiu took out a pendant from the ring. On the pendant was a thumb-sized fiery red crystal stone, which contained extremely rich fire elements. As long as it was worn on the body, it could resist the severe cold. This is lighter and more effective than wearing heavy thermal clothing. Of course, the cost is not cheap. For a thumb-sized piece like this, the market price should be between 150,000 and 200,000. Feng Xiaoqiu himself is an awakener of the ice element, which means that his physique will not be negatively affected in the cold winter environment. Instead, he will be like a fish in water, which is more beneficial to his control of the element. It's okay, I'll be fine, just take care of yourself. Chu Chen declined the other party's kindness. The power possessed by the Rock King naturally included the strongest physique. With his current body condition, ordinary severe cold and scorching heat would not cause him any discomfort. With the squeaking sound of their feet stepping on the snow, the two of them also stepped onto the remnants of the cold winter. Somewhere in the ruins, the cold weather here is more severe than other places. Thick black clouds are piled up in the sky, and snowflakes are flying all over the sky, accompanied by the howling fierce wind, sweeping down, making the snow on the ground here even thicker. However, the snow, which should have been pure white, is now mostly corroded by filthy blood. The corpses of various monsters fell to the ground one after another, and many were almost buried by the snow. The fierce wind made it impossible for people to open their eyes. A tall and burly figure stood on the snow and roared madly. This is a humanoid monster with bluish skin. Most of its skin is exposed, with only its head and some key parts covered with thick snow-white hair. It suddenly placed its strong hands in front of its chest and began to beat violently, accompanied by a thunder-like roar from its mouth. The strong sound waves immediately shattered the surrounding snow. Then, from under the thick snow emerged a group of magical beasts with the same human-like appearance, some of which were still eating the corpses of other magical beasts around them. Scarlet eyes squeezed out of the faces of these monsters. There were not just one pair of eyeballs, but also creepy eyes opened on the arms, chests, and thighs of these monsters, which was disgusting. Not far away, the fierce roar of the monster was clearly heard by Chu Chen and Feng Xiaoqiu, and a strong sense of danger suddenly arose. Such a strong aura, there's a scary guy nearby. Feng Xiaoqiu frowned and immediately grasped the ice spear in his hand and got into a fighting stance. Brother Chu, shall we go around it? He turned around to ask Chu Chen for his opinion. Just by the sound of the voice he could tell that the person who spoke was not someone to be trifled with. It's no use. They're obviously coming for us. Chu Chen shook his head. He could feel a dense aura coming towards them. Not only did they rush over, the other party seemed to be very strategic. They formed a huge circle that kept shrinking, determined to surround them. The snow above their heads was now getting thicker, and the howling and whistling of the wind carried the snowflakes, blocking most of their vision. The sound was so loud that it masked the malicious people who were surrounding them. Feng Xiaoqiu only felt that he and Chu Chen were like a small tent that was crumbling on the snow in a blizzard, or a boat that was struggling in the stormy waves. No, it was only him. Feng Xiaoqiu looked beside him and saw Chu Chen still standing there calmly with his arms folded, as if he didn't care. But no matter what, seeing Chu Chen's performance, Feng Xiaoqiu felt much more at ease. After all, when you are out there, the most important thing is to have a keen eye and be able to hold on to someone accurately. But it's a pity that the jade shield originally given to him by Chu Chen was detonated before the exit leading to the surface. Otherwise, if he still had the shield, he would be more confident. The sky became dark, and a dense crowd of red eyes opened silently all around. A strong sense of danger surged into Feng Xiaoqiu's brain. Judging from so many eyes, the number of enemies might be beyond imagination. Chu Chen also looked at the surrounding monsters with great interest. These monsters didn't look very smart, but they were able to form a circle in an orderly manner. There must be a leader among them who was giving orders. Sure enough, there was a buzz of movement among the beasts somewhere, and they spread out to both sides, leaving a gap. A burly snow giant walked slowly in front of them. Tisk! It feels more difficult to deal with than the giant just now. There are so many soldiers around. Isn't the difficulty of this test a bit too high? If a person encounters these alone, who else can handle them except Brother Chu? Feng Xiaoqiu felt his scalp tingling. The difficulty of the assessment was now far beyond his imagination. No, the difficulty is not excessive. They will arrange different difficulty levels according to each person's different situation. Chu Chen shook his head and continued, I think it's you and I who are together, so the higher UPS have determined that we are a team, so they naturally can't use the difficulty of a single player to assess us. Of course, this is just my guess. After hearing his words, Feng Xiaoqiu felt like crying but had no tears. He had thought that relying on Chu Chen would make the assessment easier, but now it seemed that it was not that easy at all. The leader, the snow giant, looked at Chu Chen and Feng Xiaoqiu who were surrounded, and suddenly a smile appeared on his face. Magical beasts of its strength have basically developed some intelligence and a slightly independent thinking consciousness, which makes them fundamentally different from ordinary magical beasts that are still like wild beasts. Before it was inexplicably caught into this space, it wandered in a certain ruin. There were two things it loved most. One was to conquer other monsters in the ruins and establish itself as king. Secondly, when it encounters those weak humans, it will not rush to kill them, but will torture them slowly. Chapter 79. A soft roar emanated from the mouth of the snowfield giant, and the surrounding beasts that were ready to move began to move slowly. As a king, it naturally would not be the first to take action. What it likes to see is commanding the surrounding soldiers to tear the enemy to pieces. They're about to attack. Feng Xiaokai clenched the ice spear in his hand. The ice element in his body caused the temperature around him to drop more sharply. The snowflakes flying around him gradually turned into sharp ice crystals. Wrapped in the cold wind, they turned into invisible sharp blades, ready to tear apart all creatures that set foot in their territory. Soldiers cannot be abandoned. They need to be pulled out for training from time to time. As the surrounding beasts prepared to attack, the ground beneath Chu Chen's feet began to shake violently. The sudden noise made the snow giant feel something was wrong, and he immediately ordered the surrounding soldiers to speed up. A giant monster holding an iron axe rushed out first, waving the axe and jumping onto Chu Chen's head, ready to chop him down heavily. Bang! But the next moment, a huge rock behind Chu Chen suddenly rose from the ground, and as it rose, it quickly melted into a complete 1,000-rock army. The Qunyan army held huge Qunyan spears in their hands, and before the giant's attack reached them, the spears instantly pierced through the opponent's chest. A huge amount of blood gushed out from the giant's body in an instant, and the enormous power of the Qunyan spear blasted its body dozens of meters away. The sudden change shocked all the creatures present except Chu Chen, and then more and more 1,000-rock army broke out from the ground around them. They gathered around Chu Chen, holding spears in their hands and forming a formation. The huge pressure immediately swept in all directions. The beast's momentum to attack was instantly suppressed. The body of the snow giant began to tremble slightly. It understood that Chu Chen in front of it was also a king, but the momentum of the soldiers under his command completely overwhelmed its own. This. Feng Xiaokai opened his eyes wide as he looked at the tall Qunyan soldiers around him, and he felt a little dazed. Is this something Chu Chen could summon? The aura exuded by each of them is incomparable to that of ordinary magical beasts. He already possesses such terrifying strength, and he can even summon so many powerful soldiers. This. How can others play this? A strong and huge feeling of frustration rose silently in Feng Xiaokai's heart. But it was gone in a flash, and he was more grateful that he had met Chu Chen in the ruins. It didn't matter if he was not good enough, he could still seize the opportunity to become an angel investor. As long as you do well, a sentence like Chu Chen is my big brother will be enough for you to walk sideways in the future. Well, having made up his mind, Feng Xiaokai knew that he had to perform even better. He couldn't help but exert more force with his hands holding the ice spear. Even more powerful strength was revealed from his body. The frost condensed into armor attached to his body. With a wave of his hand, the ice crystals in the air were driven by the strong wind and spread towards the herd of beasts. But just when he was about to rush into the enemy camp and kill them all, Feng Xiaokai seemed to have thought of something and looked back at Chu Chen embarrassedly. Brother Chu, give me another shield. Chu Chen waved his hand, and the jade shield gathered on Feng Xiaokai's body again. Okay, I'm getting excited. Feng Xiaokai's body turned into an afterimage, and everything he passed by was instantly frozen. The battle was about to break out, but only Chu Chen and the snow giant remained standing, facing each other. The snow giant slowly pulled out a Fuzu samurai sword from behind him. The slender blade was very inconsistent with his burly appearance. Its fingers slowly swept across the blade, as if silently wiping the long sword. It was a very standard movement. A newly awakened magical beast will have a strong ability to learn, perhaps it has witnessed others doing so. The giant began to bend down slowly, and placed the samurai sword at its waist as if gathering strength to draw the sword. Its slight breathing sound could be heard in the howling wind, and the snow giant exuded an increasingly stronger murderous aura, as if it wanted to suddenly attack silently. It drew a long arc in the air, storing all its strength at the tip of the blade, ready to explode all at once. Such a terrifying attack should have been even more powerful due to its speed, but until the giant swung his sword in front of Chu Chen. Clang! The other party simply raised the gun in his hand and stopped it easily. The 1,000-wave spear resonated with the surrounding 1,000 waves army, and now its properties are even more powerful. Chu Chen was even too lazy to open his shield. He just wanted to defeat his opponent with the most extreme attack, without considering whether the opponent's attack would hurt him. Ding ding ding! The rhythmic sound of cold weapons hitting each other rang out, but no matter how hard the snow giant struggled to swing his sword, Chu Chen in front of him was still calm and just moved his wrist lightly. It seemed like he didn't use much effort, but he was able to block its attack every time. The huge disparity in power made the giant's eyes tremble constantly. The man in front of him who seemed so calm made him feel powerless for the first time. The giant felt extremely shocked. This was the first time that someone could pose a fatal threat to it. In the original ruins, it was the strongest king, the king that was above all the monsters in the ruins. Even though it came to this strange space inexplicably, it relied on its overwhelming strength to reorganize a force to drive. It is always a hunter, and any past opponents are just prey. But now the roles have been reversed, the human opposite is the hunter, and it is just a more dangerous prey. Bang! Finally, as the giant's sword shattered, Chu Chen turned the gun and stabbed it towards the opponent's heart. The breath of death burst out from the tip of the gun. The strong desire to survive made the giant discard the broken weapon without hesitation. He blocked his body with two strong arms. An illusory shield appeared out of thin air. Boom! The shield naturally could not withstand Chu Chen's attack. The severe pain made the giant raise his head and scream. It seems to be calling something. You know you are no match for me, so before you die, you try your best to make such a big noise just to attract all the other creatures nearby, hoping to let them deal with me. Chu Chen smiled lightly and pierced the giant's heart with the spear in his hand. Without any hesitation, the spear pierced through, robbing the opponent of his last breath. Being decisive is his choice. Chapter 80. As the saying goes, to catch a thief, you must first catch the leader. Without the snow giants, the beast herd was leaderless and instantly lost its will to fight. They turned around and fled in all directions into the distance. But they were just a group of rabble, and they were all quickly wiped out under the pursuit of Qinyan army and Feng Xiao Kaiu. There were more corpses scattered all over the city, but the howling blizzard would soon bury them. So handsome, brother Chu. After dealing with the enemy at hand, Feng Xiao Kaiu jumped back immediately, praising him. That guy just now revealed the coordinates of this place before he died. I don't know what else will come. Anyway, let's leave here and find a place to eat something first. Chu Chen felt a little hungry. Calculating the time, he had been in this space for a long time. He should enjoy a table of delicious food to comfort himself. No problem. I brought a lot of the freshest and best ingredients, as well as all the grill seasonings. Let's have a barbecue buffet during the snowstorm. As soon as the topic of food came up, Feng Xiao Kaiu suddenly felt hungry and quickly agreed. Chu Chen waved his hand and called back the Qinyan army. Just as they were preparing to find a safe place to rest, through resonance with the earth, Chu Chen instantly sensed that four extraordinary forces were approaching them. It was moving very fast and was obviously coming towards them. Brother Chu, why don't you leave? Feng Xiao Kaiu, who had already walked more than 10 meters away, asked in confusion. But soon, he also saw four figures walking towards this side in the wind and snow in the distance. They look like humans, and you can vaguely see that they are wearing neat clothes, so they shouldn't be monsters. Until these people's figures were fully revealed in front of them, there were 3 men and 1 woman in total, all of them were wearing neat black uniforms, and the leader was a man with a distinctive Japanese samurai hairstyle. Judging from his appearance, he should be about the same age as Chu Chen and the others, but this man had a full beard and a black samurai sword on his waist, obviously dressed like a Japanese ronin. Brother Chu, they are the awakened ones of Fuzhang. Feng Xiao Kaiu suddenly leaned close to Chu Chen's ear and whispered, the leader is called Zhou Longping. He is also a special sequence of heavenly awakeners. After awakening, he has become quite famous in the world. As soon as he finished speaking, Longping, the witness, suddenly spoke, Chu Chen. He was obviously speaking Japanese, and there seemed to be a hint of excitement in his tone. The simultaneous translation headset translated his words into Chu Chen's ears. I didn't expect to run into you. You must be Chu Chen, right? I can't be wrong. I've memorized your face. I want to fight you head-on. It can be seen that Longping exuded a strong fighting spirit, and even his hand was impatiently placed on the hilt of the knife, as if he was ready to draw the knife at any time. They rushed here after hearing the giant's last roar, and did not expect to meet Chu Chen here. Chu Chen did not expect that this guy named Zhou Zhenglongping would come up and compete with him, although he had heard that the brain circuits of the guys in Fuzhou were not normal and they were all very aggressive. But this was the first time he had met him in person. As the saying goes, there is no false reputation under a great name. I think Mr. Chu Chen would not mind having a friendly exchange with me. This is evidenced by Long Ping's firm tone. He is well aware that people from various countries are watching this assessment. Every awakened person here represents not only himself, but also the country behind him. Feng Xiaokai then whispered again, "Brother Chu, the reason why this little Fuzhou is famous is not only because of his strength, but more importantly, because of his aggressiveness. If he takes a fancy to you, unless you agree to compete with him, he will definitely pester you to death. We are in trouble now." Trouble? It does sound a bit troublesome at first glance, but from a common sense perspective, why not just agree to his request? Chu Chen found that the words from the perspective of universal rationality were simply poisonous. Ever since he first said them with interest, he always unconsciously added a few more words to them. Yoshi. Good job Chu Chen. I knew you wouldn't refuse. Only the weak would run away. Zhou Longping's eyes lit up, and he continued, but since it's just a sparring match, I hope to have a pure skills sparring match with you. We can attach elements to our weapons, but it will only be a cold weapon fight, without using other skills. Because I have seen your battle videos, and your marksmanship is truly amazing. This time we are competing mainly to learn from your marksmanship, so I hope you can agree to this request. The other three people behind Zhou Zhenglongping frowned when they heard this, although Zhou Zhenglongping had indeed always been pursuing pure martial arts exchanges. But this time, the main concern was that Chu Chen would summon another meteorite to fall down if he disagreed with him. After all, it proves that Long Ping's swordsmanship is not yet capable of cutting meteorites into pieces. They still remember the scene in which Chu Chen summoned the stars. It was something they were simply unable to contend with. Okay, I agree to your terms, but I won't compete with you in shooting. Chu Chen agreed to the other party's request, but when everyone heard him say that he would not use a gun, they were all stunned. After all, in the information they had seen about Chu Chen always fought with his amazing marksmanship. If not guns, what else can we use? As if he could see the confusion of the people around him, Chu Chen immediately used the molten rock to forge a one-handed sword-like weapon. The Rock King was proficient in all kinds of weapons. Since gaining the bonus of mastery over all weapons, Chu Chen had only tried the bow and arrow once, and had not tried other weapons yet. Now is a good opportunity to try out my sword skills with this awakened person from Fuzhou. It's actually swordsmanship? If so, that's even better. This proves that Long Ping was even more excited, as what he wanted to pursue was the ultimate in swordsmanship and martial arts. Then let's do it here. Don't waste time. I need to eat after the discussion. Good. Wisps of red flames began to emerge from Long Ping's body. It was obvious that his awakened ability was related to fire. The flame slowly wrapped around the blade under his control. The flame that was originally filled with violent power was now extremely quiet in the hands of Zhou Zhenglongping. There was no dazzling light from the explosion. This strong flame was being precisely controlled by the opponent. Seeing this scene, Chu Chen also nodded. The other party is also quite capable, so it won't be too boring to spar with him. Until the high temperature enveloped the surroundings, it was proved that Long Ping's long knife cut out instantly. Chapter 81. This proves that Long Ping's movement was very fast, at least to ordinary people you couldn't see his movements at all. The blizzard that swept across the world obscured the vision of most people. Although Zhou Zhenglongshan had covered his long sword with flames before, the moment the blade was unsheathed, these dazzling flames were instantly gathered into the blade. This made the original method of relying on firelight to identify and verify Long Ping's actions completely ineffective. Feng Xiaokai couldn't help but clench his fists. This was a purely technical competition, and Chu Chen didn't use a shield to protect himself. It was a pure confrontation between physical bodies and cold weapons. Feng Xiaokai had no idea how Chu Chen would react in this situation. At least from his perspective, he couldn't see Long Ping's figure, so he couldn't judge the opponent's knife-holding technique and movements. In short, he had no idea where the opponent's attack would come from or in what form it would take. The strong wind blocked his hearing and the blizzard obscured his vision, but Chu Chen still stood there motionless, with even the tip of the one-handed knife in his hand still perpendicular to the ground. This was a posture that completely exposed all of his weaknesses. At this moment, in addition to the few people watching on the scene, the audience who had been observing every move in the conference room were also worried for him. It proves that Long Ping has been learning swordsmanship since elementary school. After awakening his ability, he has integrated the two. In pure swordplay, that guy has the advantage. I really don't understand why Chu Chen doesn't use a gun. He is using his own weaknesses to fight against the enemy's strengths. And now he doesn't have any combat reaction at all. It's strange. It proves that Long Ping has a very famous assassination knife, which is a fatal blow that comes unexpectedly. The blizzard environment has created a unique advantage for him. The audience was discussing this matter enthusiastically, and this was more exciting than watching any other movie. Finally, Long Ping's figure emerged from the wind and snow. He slid past an abandoned building and finally slashed towards Chu Chen. Kasashimai, called Kasashikiri or Kasashizanri in Fuzu, first hides the traces of oneself and the blade through active covering, making it impossible for the enemy to judge one's attack. Then, it cuts out in an instant, slicing diagonally through the enemy's shoulder. The line where the sword goes is like the collar of the upper body of a monk's robe. Fire burst out from Zhou Zheng Longping's sword again. The red flame was extremely eye-catching, and it was no longer afraid of exposing itself. As the blade approached rapidly, Chu Chen suddenly attacked. He swung the blade from bottom to top, counter-attacking in a completely opposite way to that of Zhou Zheng Longping. Reverse robe. The long swords of the two men intersected in an instant, causing sparks on the Longping sword to jump brilliantly. The scorching heat rushed in all directions, directly melting the snow within a radius of 100 meters. However, no matter how hot the opponent's flames were, they could not shake Chu Chen's ancient rock at all, and the two of them were deadlocked for a while. Although the two were evenly matched, Long Ping's expression became more and more solemn. No matter whether he was wearing the right or wrong robe, he was aiming to kill with one strike. If the situation is at a stalemate, the positive robe will have a great advantage over the reverse robe, because it is swung from top to bottom, carrying a unique advantage and a favorable point of force. On the other hand, Chu Chen's reverse cassock, swinging the sword from bottom to top, is definitely not conducive to long-term fighting. But what surprised Long Ping even more was that in the face of his attack, Chu Chen was still swinging the sword with one hand, and there was no sign of effort on his face. A heavy and unprecedented sense of insignificance arose from the bottom of Long Ping's heart. At this moment, he suddenly felt like he was chopping at a towering mountain. No matter how hard he tried, he could not shake it even a little bit. Visibly, golden rock elements began to attach to Chu Chen's blade. Bang! A powerful force burst out from the blade, directly repelling Long Ping's attack. It proves that Long Ping was caught off guard and the long sword in his hand actually flew out of his hand and flew into the air. It turned out that Long Ping was unarmed for a moment, but he reacted quickly. Red flames attached to his hands, and he instantly pounced towards Chu Chen, closing the distance between the two sides. His two hands instantly grasped Chu Chen's blade, and the Yagyu Shinkijryu no Totsuka was taken. The technique of seizing the opponent's weapon while unarmed is called barehanded catching of a blade in Kyushu. However, he completely underestimated Chu Chen's power. No matter how he used his power, he could not snatch even a little bit from Chu Chen. Chu Chen's long sword was already preparing to launch the next attack. A strong sense of danger instantly enveloped Zhou Longping. He quickly retreated and caught the flying long sword in his hand again. The next moment, Chu Chen's attack had already arrived. A simple and plain heavy blow came from his hand. There was no fancy beauty, only extreme power bursting out. Zhou Longping hurriedly raised his sword to block, and the huge force made his hands numb. However, before the power of the first blow had passed, the second blow came right after. Bang! 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 One after another, simple attacks were launched from Chu Chen's hands, and each attack was more powerful than the previous one. It seemed that Long Ping's body could not stop retreating backwards. Now he had no other way except to defend himself. Chu Chen's movements were simple and neat, but each one of them hit the vital points directly, including chopping, sweeping, following the trend, using heavy force, rushing like thunder, slicing diagonally, taking quick shots, and thrusting. Clang! With a final loud bang, Long Ping's long sword suddenly turned into countless flying fragments, and without the obstruction of the blade, Chu Chen's final sword also swung to his throat. He stopped when there was still 1 centimeter away, and Chu Chen did not forget to remove all the power of the blade. Otherwise, even if the blade did not hit, the residual power would be fatal to Zhou Zheng Longping. I lost. Zhu Zhenglongping's eyes widened and he said in astonishment. He now fully realized that he had no ability to fight back. The weapon condensed from the rock once again turned into rock elements and dissipated from Chu Chen's hand. Good. It's wonderful. As expected of Chu Chen, his reputation is truly worthy of its name. Suddenly, there was loud cheers all around. Various languages were translated into Chu Chen's ears through a simultaneous interpreter. He looked around and realized that they had attracted quite a few people here without him noticing. Obviously, they were all students who participated in the special training camp like them, and there were awakened people from various countries. Call the supporting Longping exhaled slowly, bowed slightly, and said, I have benefited a lot from this exchange, Chu Chen, thank you very much. Chapter 82. This proved that Longping's reaction made Chu Chen very satisfied. The other party could at least afford to lose, but the noise was indeed a bit loud and attracted quite a few people. Looking at the people around him with different skin colors, there are even many people among them who are eager to try and want to continue competing with him. Come on. Chu Chen waved his hand and then walked away, let's go eat first. Yes, brother Chu. After the duel with Zhou Zhenglongping's pure skills, Feng Xiaokai's respect and admiration for Chu Chen has become even stronger. When he said the words brother Chu, he emphasized his tone, as if he was talking to the others around him, see? This is my big brother. After all, it is such a great honor to be able to have a relationship with such a powerful being. And seeing that Chu Chen had no intention of sparring with them anymore, many people in the crowd gathered here sighed with regret. But they had no choice. They were still in the trial space and there were still many dangers in the dark. Most people's focus was still on the way forward. Watching Chu Chen's figure gradually disappear into the distance, the crowd that had originally gathered here also dispersed again. Soon, only Longping and the few people he brought with him were left to testify. Looking at the remains of the dagger on the ground, Zhou Zhenglongping thought for a moment, then bent down and began to pick up the broken pieces. In the huge conference room, no one spoke a word and silence filled the entire room. It's a bit beyond my expectations. A middle-aged man in military uniform and wearing a general star on his head was the first to break the atmosphere. I also thought that Chu Chen relied most on the skills he awakened, but I didn't expect that his own strength was so strong. In general, Chu Chen once again refreshed most people's perception of him. Everyone, there are quite a lot of variables this year. If we continue to test these new stars according to the originally set difficulty, I'm afraid it will not be enough. A white-haired old man suddenly said in a deep voice. What do you mean? As the hope for the future of mankind, we must let them adapt to blood and fire in advance and face their own fears. However, judging from the performance of most people so far, the difficulty we originally set obviously underestimated them. The old man smiled slightly, the trial is too bland, so it's hard to leave a deep impression on them. We must also let them feel some necessary negative emotions. Only when they adapt to these factors will they avoid any unnecessary mistakes when they enter the battlefield in the future. So, why not raise the difficulty to the highest level we can currently use? Didn't we just capture a batch of mutated monsters not long ago? I think we should let them replace the ordinary monsters. After he finished speaking, everyone fell into deep thought. I think so. A trial that is painless is meaningless. Our goal is to allow them to grow and gain something. Besides, we have full control over this space, so we don't have to worry about any accidents. I agree. Most people agreed to the old man's proposal at once. They need to know where the limits of this batch of hope are. If the seedlings do not experience the storm, they will leave behind fatal hidden dangers in the future. In that case, let's prepare to change the difficulty in this space. And inside the space, no one realized that the danger had been magnified several times silently. The snowstorm buried the outside world, and the time in this space came to night, and the sky and the earth became even darker. Inside a dilapidated building at this moment, the fire is shining, the barbecue stove, ingredients, seasonings, stoves, spatulas. The neatly arranged appliances and utensils transform this abandoned house into a complete kitchen. Chu Chen was completely stunned. The things Feng Xiaokai brought were really complete. The beast meat with perfect texture is being continuously smoked by the flame, making sizzling sounds from time to time, and drops of hot oil slowly slide down the grain of the plump meat, which is intoxicating. Brother Chu, this meat is not ordinary beast meat, but the meat of a leader-level monster. It is fresher, more tender, and more fragrant than ordinary meat. As Feng Xiaokai spoke, saliva flowed from the corners of his mouth. Just by smelling the scent, Chu Chen already felt extremely hungry. It was obvious that everything Feng Xiaokai brought was of extremely high quality and valuable. After a while, the barbecue was cooked to perfection, with a shiny brown color, just right. Come on, Brother Chu, try it. The moment you take a bite of the barbecue, your mouth will be filled with boiling heat. The meat has been cooked over a fierce fire and is already full of fragrance. The added seasonings serve as a supporting role, increasing the deliciousness while retaining the most original meaty texture to the maximum extent, avoiding overshadowing the main flavor. The texture is crispy on the outside, tender on the inside. It is tasty, tender, crispy, fresh, and salty. Just one bite will give you a great sense of satisfaction. Writing to myself that I am hungry. After a hearty meal, Chu Chen and Feng Xiaokai both looked very satisfied. Brother Chu, haha, eat well, have a good sleep, and continue your journey tomorrow. Feng Xiaokai yawned and took out 2 beds from the ring. The wind and snow outside seemed to be getting stronger, and the accumulated snow had already reached halfway to the gate. At this moment, the ground suddenly shook slightly. If nothing unexpected happened, an accident would have happened. The sudden movement caught the attention of the 2 people, and Chu Chen chuckled, "Your wish has not been fulfilled, be prepared." The Yuzhong shield was immediately bestowed upon the 2 of them. Chu Chen took a step forward and leapt to the roof of a 50-meter-high building to observe. In the sky, dense black shadows were flying. They fluttered their transparent wings behind them and looked like various insects, except that their bodies were magnified many times. At the same time, wherever there were students in the space, the surrounding terrain was shaking. The crisis is imminent. Brother Chu, look! Feng Xiaokai's shout came from below. A huge magical beast that looked like a praying mantis was flying in the air, and on its back stood a figure in a black robe holding a staff. Hidden under the black robe was actually a skeleton. The skeleton raised the staff in his hand, and several silver-white arcs of lightning shot towards Chu Chen at a high speed. The lightning arc came with great force, not only attacking Chu Chen, it was also spreading rapidly, turning into thick lightning pillars that smashed in all directions. Boom! Wherever it landed, dazzling flames shot up into the sky and violent explosions continued. Chapter 83. The lightning facing Chu Chen continued to move forward with unabated momentum, and in an instant it arrived in front of him with terrifying power. He just let the thunder strike the Yuzhong shield, creating ripples. There were many magical beasts running wildly in the air and on the ground, and rock ridges kept rising from the ground, shaking in all directions. Chu Chen could hear roars coming from far away in all directions from time to time. The colorful lights were particularly dazzling in the dim sky and earth. Other awakened people also started fighting with these sudden monsters. He didn't care about the monsters. Although the aura of the monster this time felt much stronger than before, it was not enough to attract his attention. Chu Chen looked at the skeleton mage who was watching from high in the sky. That guy was the leader. Seeing that the attack did not cause much damage to Chu Chen, the skeleton mage raised his staff again, and streams of rapid water began to surround it. These water flows instantly condensed into various weapons, and countless water-blue weapons swept towards Chu Chen from all directions. The attacks of these water currents converge together, like huge, continuous waves. Chu Chen's figure is located at the center of these waves, like a rock standing on the vast waves and tsunami, steady and motionless. Then the skeleton mage once again cast intensive thunder. Electric arcs attached to the waves, crisscrossing each other. In an instant, the blue and white water was wrapped in silver-white thunder, setting off a huge surge of power. The 2 forces superimposed on each other, surrounding Chu Chen in the center, and then quickly contracted towards his body. Looking at this unavoidable powerful attack, Chu Chen manipulated the jade shield on his body to change its shape. The defensive energy was instantly transformed into an attack, turning into a golden blade that attacked from the inside out. Boom! In an instant, 2 completely different ripples collided with each other, but under the power of Yu Zhang's shield, the condensed water flow was constantly broken, and the thunder it carried was also unstoppable. There was almost no time for stalemate. Lei Shui's attack was instantly shattered, and the remaining power of Yu Zhang's shield continued to spread in all directions. The skeleton mage was shocked. The development of the matter was obviously beyond his expectations. It waved its staff and cast a golden shield in front of itself, but it was still shattered in an instant by Chu Chen's residual power. Fortunately, that force was also blocked. The skeleton mage didn't have time to breathe a sigh of relief before a pair of golden eyes instantly appeared in front of him. It didn't know what was happening yet, but at that moment, fear was its only reaction. Kunyan's spear pierced through its body, and this skeleton will eventually fall apart. After destroying the leader-level monster, Chu Chen continued to maintain his momentum and turned the gun towards the giant mantis below. The body of this gigantic monster was not as hard as a mountain, and it instantly exploded into pieces of blood and flesh under the spear. Chu Chen returned to the roof of the tallest building again, looking at the enemies coming from all directions, densely packed together, surging like waves in the white snow. Feng Xiaokai below was constantly fighting with the monsters. With the help of the Jade Shield and the Rock Ridge, he seemed to be very comfortable. When a person gives up the idea of defense, his attack will be extremely fierce. Every time Feng Xiaokai attacked, he would kill dozens of monsters. The feeling of just attacking without having to consider anything else was truly fascinating. But his physical strength is limited. As time goes by, the enemies gather more and more, and he himself is gradually exhausted. Ding! Triggering an additional mission, kill the third stage late stage leader level alien king's servant. Suddenly, the system's voice sounded in my mind. As he looked ahead, he saw a golden beam of light rising in the distance. Those were the coordinates. Just like the last time when he was looking for the Ruda Dragon King, the system thoughtfully marked the location for him. Chu Chen had no reason not to go. It was the late third stage, and it was an alien species in a leader level. It sounded dangerous, but the rewards would definitely be great. Then there was no point in staying here any longer, so Chu Chen threw out the Kunyan spear. The tip of the spear pierced through a low-level leader below. His eyes began to transform from dull to bright, and the golden eyes were dazzling. For a moment, Feng Xiaokai suddenly felt a bright light above his head, as if the sun had risen again. He looked up, but the sky was still dark and the blizzard was still falling heavily. When he lowered his head, the golden light shone from above his head again, even brighter than before. When Feng Xiaokai looked up again, oh my god! The originally mighty snowflakes suddenly dissipated and melted, and a huge black hole covered their heads. Golden auspicious clouds swirled around, and huge stars fell from the sky. Here it comes! Everyone in the conference room, who were closely observing every move in the space, cried out in surprise. They enlarged the screen where Chu Chen was and quietly admired this shocking scene. So beautiful, as dazzling as gold. The most beautiful things are the most deadly. Explosions are an art, but now they are considered aesthetics. Everyone was full of praise, and they increased the difficulty just to see Chu Chen use this earth-shattering move again. Boxes of drinks and delicious food were brought in from outside, and it was time to eat. After everyone who was observing here received their portion, they savored the food while watching the next scene intently. It's as pleasant as watching a movie, but for them, this scene is incomparable to any other movie. The golden star in the sky trembled slightly. Red flames surrounded it, carrying a long tail, and turned into a sun, whose light illuminated the night sky. What a beautiful scene this is! The golden light cuts through the deep darkness, but it itself carries an extremely terrifying power. Everyone held their breath and watched as the star finally touched the ground. Temperatures of tens of thousands of degrees exploded instantly, bringing with it a violent shock wave that swept across everything around it. At this moment, no one made a sound in the huge conference room. Everyone was watching everything silently. This was a thrilling trial. It's like a high and mighty god issuing an oracle of destruction with a wave of his hand. It took a long time for these people to react. Even through the screen, they could clearly feel the pressure released by the giant object. With this kind of range of power, will it really not accidentally hurt other students around? Someone suddenly asked. Chapter 84. The originally noisy scene was instantly poured with a bucket of cold water. Silence spread in everyone's heart. FK. Some staff members suddenly jumped up and shouted in sweat. The scene just now was so magnificent that they were so dazed that they forgot there were other students nearby. With such a terrifying power, let alone accidental injuries, I'm afraid there is not even a slag left. You have to know that every student in this space is a special sequence. The value of a special sequence is simply immeasurable. If there is any mistake, these people dare not even think about it. Humph, a bunch of young boys are unstable when doing things. Don't worry, the students nearby are fine. Just when most people were getting so nervous that they were about to go crazy, the original white-haired old man suddenly spoke again. Don't forget your job. You are not here to be a qualified spectator. What you need to do is to pay attention to the situation of each student at all times and ensure their absolute safety. I knew you new guys wouldn't do your job well. I'm going to give you a negative grade in your internship. The old man looked displeased, and in response to his criticism, the young staff members just nodded sincerely and admitted their mistakes. After all, they had completely neglected their duties just now. Then, Master Mo, you said that the students nearby are fine? But with such great power. Do you underestimate my perception? As the person in charge of the trial, I know everything that happens in every corner of this space. When the smoke and dust clears, you will see for yourself. The old man called Mr. Mo took out a bottle of ice-cold beer from the box that was delivered. Seeing his indifferent expression, most people breathed a sigh of relief. At least this shows that Chu Chen's Tianxing just now did not affect other students, otherwise Mr. Mo, as the person in charge, would not be so calm. But I still find it incredible. Such a powerful force. If you don't intervene, how can it not cause harm to others? A Western man with white hair, blue eyes and a big nose spoke anxiously in his somewhat broken Hyuxia. Not far from Chu Chen, there was an awakened person from their country. See for yourself. Mr. Mo drank his beer nonchalantly. The screen cuts back to the area near Chu Chen, where the thick smoke gradually dissipates and the dilapidated buildings that were originally leaning to one side or the other are now completely razed to the ground. The earth was in ruins. Everything in this space had been carefully reinforced, but the power created by Chu Chen was enough to exceed the limits of the reinforcement and still caused great changes to the terrain of the space. The originally surging tide of beasts naturally disappeared without a trace, most of them turned into ashes, and the stronger ones still had half of their limbs left, but they were also burned to charcoal. The sky and the earth were dark, but on the dark ground, there were scattered spots of dazzling golden light. These golden light spots were randomly distributed around Chu Chen. They were all students who had been fighting nearby. The reason why they were shining on their bodies was because they were all surrounded by the Yuzhang shield. Isn't this Chu Chen's shield? Why does it appear on other people? The ability to grant others shields is not uncommon, don't make a fuss about it. Is it because of the shooting star? A lively discussion broke out in the conference room again, with most people marveling at how these students could remain unharmed under such a powerful force. Chu Chen seems to be able to control his abilities and choose who will not be harmed. Mr. Mo said softly, with an incredible look in his eyes. You actually have this ability. If it's on the battlefield, wouldn't you not have to worry about accidentally injuring friendly forces and can just bomb the enemy directly? Someone shouted in surprise. Most of the large-scale lethal technological weapons and the awakened one's skills with huge range and power on the battlefield today have a shortcoming, which is that they cannot distinguish between friend and foe. Especially when the enemy invades a city or the two armies are entangled, general huge area damage basically has no chance of appearing. After all, it is easy to injure 1,000 enemies and lose 300 of your own. Everyone's eyes are fixed on Chu Chen, who always creates surprises for the world time and time again. Inside the space, Chu Chen looked at the other students in the distance who were surrounded by jade shields, his eyes slightly condensed. Before summoning Tianxing, he did sense the presence of other people nearby, so he allowed these people not to be harmed by Tianxing. However, he did not take the initiative to grant these people the jade shield, and the number of jade shields present now exceeded the number he could actively grant. It can only be explained by one thing, that this was not given actively by Chu Chen, but that Tianxing passively gave these people the shield. The passively granted shield seemed to be unrestricted in number. He glanced around and saw about 10 people nearby, all of whom were surrounded by shields. However, these shields did not last long on them and soon dissipated automatically. This is another new discovery. The passively granted jade shield is not as durable as the actively granted one. It can be said that the duration is greatly shortened. Chu Chen nodded. There were many things that were not marked on the system panel, and he needed to explore them himself. He then came to Feng Xiaoqiu, who was now so frightened that he almost fell to the ground. The feeling of being there when the star fell just now made him feel safe and secure, even with the jade shield. Although he was not injured, the scene just now still caused considerable damage to his heart. Chu, brother Chu. Seeing Chu Chen coming, Feng Xiaoqiu wanted to stand up, but his legs were already weak. As soon as he exerted a little strength, his legs uncontrollably knelt towards Chu Chen. There shouldn't be any large-scale monsters coming to this area in the near future. You can hide here for the time being. Ah! Brother Chu, what about you? I have other things I need to do. Chu Chen took the Kunyan spear in his hand, turned around and walked towards the location marked with the coordinates. Although the distance was far, just by relying on its aura, one could sense that the demon beast named Wang Shi was extremely powerful. With Feng Xiaokai's current strength, he won't be able to play much of a role even if he returns to the past. Once the war breaks out, it would be difficult for him to be completely ignored, so he simply lets him stay here for the time being. Because I can feel that this is going to be a very tough battle. Chu Chen's figure gradually faded away until it was swallowed by the night. Chapter 85. Space, deep in the wilderness. This is a dense and tall forest. In the endless sea of forest, stands a huge volcano. The area around the volcano, whether in the sky or on the ground, was occupied by all kinds of strange monsters. All of these magical beasts tightly surrounded the volcano, just like guards protecting something. Inside the volcano, a huge egg is immersed in the scorching magma. The lava is constantly being absorbed by the giant egg, and a faint black shadow can be vaguely seen in it. And the surface of the egg gradually showed tiny cracks. Outside the volcano, a huge sickle swept across, instantly reaping the lives of dozens of monsters. It's very strange. The strength of these monsters is much stronger than the ones we encountered before. The one holding the sickle is a blue-haired woman, her name is Vera, an awakener from the Kingdom of Winter, and her talent is the special sequence Earth level. It doesn't matter, just treat it as an experience. A burly, half-beast man walked out of the dense forest, holding a huge monster in each of his claws. Abel, the awakener of Britain, has a special sequence human-level talent. And around them, there are many other students. The appearance of such a huge monster is a rare opportunity for these people to gain experience. But it's such a pity. I ran into the legendary Chu Chen earlier, but he didn't look like he was interested in sparring with me. Otherwise, I would really like to try it myself to see how strong he is. Abel tore the monster in his hand apart with a little force and said with some regret. Chu Chen is a heavenly level, and you, a human level, want to compete with him. Didn't you see what happened to Zhou Zhanglongping? I'm afraid you will end up in a worse situation than him. Vera smiled softly, as if she had heard a joke. Of course I know I'm no match for him, but for a sparring match, I should fight against someone stronger than me. Abel shook his head and continued to rush towards the other monsters nearby. By the way, it looks like sparks are starting to come out of that crater. I have a bad feeling. Let's leave here first. No. The monsters near the volcano have become even more violent. The students nearby suddenly noticed something strange happening around them and they shouted in surprise. Boom! The ground shook more violently and the sound became louder. From afar, the forest in this wilderness suddenly surged with wave after wave of green. Then, powerful auras emerged from all directions. It was the might of leader-level monsters. So many leader-level ones. Don't scatter, they seem to be trying to surround us. That's right, everyone must get together at this time. Originally divided into several small groups, the awakened people from different countries are now gathered together. No matter whether they know each other or not, in the face of unknown dangers, people will try their best to avoid traveling alone. Fortunately, they all had simultaneous interpretation headphones on, otherwise the various languages combined together would have made communication the biggest obstacle. In another part of the wilderness, Longping and others were also surrounded by the sudden leader-level monsters. It turned out that Longping had a new weapon in his hand. This time it was not for sparring. The red flames completely covered his whole body. Every time he swung the sword, it would stir up a fire wave dozens of meters high that would engulf the enemy. The scorching flames continued to circle under the sword wind, turning into a giant fire tornado that spread in all directions, directly burning most of the monsters into dry bones. What a difficult fellow! Is the test given by the higher UPS really not that simple? Zhu Zhanglongping exhaled lightly, and then said to a woman behind him, Sakura, help me heal. The woman called Sakura is an awakened healer with a special sequence of human-level talents. He is the only one among these people who has known Zhou Zhanglongping since childhood. They trained in the same martial arts hall, and later awakened special sequences one after another. It seems that you still have strong fighting spirit. You didn't get discouraged by being defeated by Chu Chen. Green light spread from Sakura's hand, covering Zhou Zhanglongping and slowly healing his injuries. Chu Chen is a monster. I never thought I could beat him. Zhu Longping sighed. I just regard him as a goal to catch up with. In the martial arts world, the most frightening thing is to have no goal. Regardless of whether I can surpass him in the end, at least this moment will give me the motivation to move forward. His gaze then turned to the volcano in the distance. The magical beasts that had gathered there seemed to be flying towards them. Anyway, let's get through this trial first, as new enemies are coming. Get ready for battle again. As a proof, Long Ping had not yet finished his words when a hideous bloody mark suddenly appeared on Ying's neck. Hot blood spurted out and she fell to the ground in an instant. What? For a moment, Zhou Zheng, Long Ping and several others were stunned. They didn't see what killed Sakura, and what surprised them even more was that it's just a trial, why would someone die? But they didn't have time to think, because danger was coming towards them soon. The dark shadow whose whereabouts could not be seen clearly appeared and disappeared, but every time it appeared, it would take someone's life. In just a blink of an eye, Zhou Zheng Longping was the only one left standing there. How could it be? The long sword in his hand trembled constantly, and a dark figure came behind him silently and suddenly exploded. Clang! At the same time, more intense large-scale battles broke out throughout the space. The original individual trial instantly evolved into a war. No matter who they were, as long as they were human, they all gathered together as much as possible at this moment. Now, all the students in this space are of special sequence. When they gather together, their powerful force can kill hundreds or thousands of monsters in an instant. However, the enemy's attacks were endless. And they themselves have only recently awakened, and most of them have not yet completed systematic learning, so how can they grow? After all, there are only a few people like Chu Chen who can possess powerful strength in such a short period of time. Most of the special sequences that have not grown up can at most hold on a little longer than other awakeners. But what made them even more desperate was that people around them were constantly dying from the attacks of monsters. Isn't this a trial? How could someone die? They are a special sequence, isn't there anyone looking after them? All kinds of questions flooded their minds, but the enemy's intensive and fierce attacks made most of them breathless, leaving them no time to think carefully, and they could only fight like machines. Chapter 86. Death is something they must face. In the observation meeting room, most people sighed as they looked at the tragic scene. Just now, several strong men who were good at illusions took action. Whenever a student in the space could not hold on, they would rescue him/her and leave an illusion of the student being killed on the spot. The people in this space naturally don't know all this. They can only see students like themselves being killed around them. Facing the death of people around them, they are undergoing the most rigorous mental training. Not only do they need to be strong physically, but more importantly, they need to have the strongest mental qualities. We must pave the way for them before they can officially step onto the battlefield. In the crowd, Mr. Mo swallowed the last sip of beer and turned to a staff member beside him and said, "How are the monsters in those eggs hatching?" "Report to Master Mo, they are almost all hatched and can be deployed." "Very good." Mr. Mo opened a new bottle of beer, "Put these monsters in the areas of the heavenly level in the space, their performance is what we want to see the most. By the way, the one left for Chu Chen should be the strongest one." Boom! The volcano in the forest suddenly erupted, accompanied by violent lava outflow, and several black shadows flew out of the crater. These black shadows were extremely fast, and once they appeared, they immediately fled towards the distant sky in all directions. However, a black shadow was still flying in the air at the original location. It looked roughly like a human, but its body was slender, with arms almost hanging to its knees, and its sharp claws flashing a dazzling cold light. Its body is covered with silver-grey scales, and it has a pair of wings as thin as cicada wings on its back. On the wings there are patterns that look like flowing magma. Its huge eyes are made up of countless densely packed compound eyes, shining with dangerous light. What is that? Such a strong sense of oppression, it is the strongest leader. How could that be? We are simply not capable of fighting against a monster of this level now. The eyes of all the students in the dense forest were drawn to the black shadow above their heads. Their instinctive intuition warned them that this was the most powerful existence. Roar! A deafening roar suddenly erupted from the black shadow's mouth, and the enormous power contained in the sound waves burst out. Some students in the crowd whose physical strength was almost exhausted collapsed directly to the ground under the roar. The magical beasts that were originally scattered around seemed to have received commands. They no longer dispersed, but launched a desperate attack on everyone. "Everyone, don't disperse. Protect the auxiliary awakeners, and the awakeners with strong defense will go first." At the critical moment of life and death, everyone could only gather into a line. At this moment, no one knew who was in charge, but everyone still played their roles in an orderly manner. The colorful shield barrier wrapped them tightly inside, and various elements flew around, launching a final counterattack against the surrounding enemies. Explosions filled the sky and rang in everyone's ears. Abel, who had completely transformed into an orc, tore the monsters that broke through the defense line into pieces. The pitch-black shadow blade was attached to Vera's sickle. Every time she swung the sickle, several shadows would appear and attack together with her, and in an instant, hundreds of monsters could be killed. However, the number of enemies was too great, and everyone present would eventually be exhausted, while the strongest being in the air, at this moment, still had his arms clasped across his chest, looking at them coldly. It seemed that he didn't even bother to take action. Use the shield to delay the time as much as possible, and everyone can take this opportunity to recover their energy. Seeing that more and more enemies were surrounding them, most people changed their strategy, delayed their attacks, and retreated into their shields to restore their energy. After these people have recovered enough, they will rush out to launch a fierce attack while another group recovers. Use the form of a round-robin battle to delay the resistance time as much as possible. There was still a glimmer of hope in everyone's heart, which was to wait for rescue from above. After all, they are now in a space trial and facing such a life and death moment. It is impossible for the people above to remain indifferent to them. If we just hold on a little longer, there might be hope of survival. However, the black shadow above their heads seemed to see through their countermeasures. Its wings suddenly shook, and then the whole person disappeared from the spot in an instant. Bang! Ka! Ka! No one could see its movement trajectory clearly, and the several shields protecting everyone were broken in an instant. Without the shield to block them, the surrounding monsters attacked more recklessly. Damn it! After breaking the shield, he returned to the air again without taking any action. Is he just kidding us? The black shadow once again resumed its condescending attitude. It was not worried at all that these students could cause any trouble. The encirclement was shrinking, and soon, these students reached a point where they had no way to retreat. Damn it! Is this the only way? Vera sighed, and then she thought of Chu Chen. If that legendary guy was here, perhaps there would be a chance to turn the situation around. But it's all over. Boom! Suddenly, a huge explosion came from the outskirts of the beast tide, and the huge force instantly opened a gap. Such a scene instantly attracted everyone's attention. Could it be that support had arrived? However, contrary to everyone's expectations, only a staggering figure covered in blood rushed over from the gap. Prove Long Ping. Are you the only one providing support? The crowd, who were originally filled with joy, were stunned for a moment. Looking at the wounded Zhou Longping, it seemed that his arrival could not change anything. What support? There is a very powerful monster behind me. I am no match for it. I just noticed your presence, so I came to join you. Looking behind him, he saw a magical beast with an unusual aura coming towards him in the distance. Although it is not as powerful as the guy above their heads, it is still far beyond the reach of ordinary monsters. Instead of waiting for reinforcements, another deadly danger arose, and an atmosphere of despair suddenly filled the air. Can't you see we are all in trouble? Someone asked angrily. I can't do anything. There is no sign of anyone else around except you. It was seen that Longping was half kneeling on the ground, with a ball of turbid blood coming out of his mouth. Seeing how miserable he looked, the others didn't know what to say. However, the magical beast brought by Longping undoubtedly accelerated their collapse. Their fighting spirit began to wane, and everyone's energy was almost exhausted. The beast tide began to gather more rapidly until it was about to reach them. Is this all we can do? Everyone thought in despair. Boom! The ground beneath their feet suddenly began to shake, and most people thought it was caused by a tide of beasts. However, they never expected that huge rocks suddenly broke out from the ground and blocked the crowd. The moment these rocks rose, they turned into tall human figures. They held their spears high in their hands and bombarded the tide of beasts swarming around them. Chapter 87. What? The sudden scene stunned everyone. They could only see burly figures protecting them tightly inside. The monsters outside attacked frantically, but these rock-hard soldiers stood still with huge spears in their hands. When they swung the spears, the tremendous force they carried would crush the enemies in an instant. What happened? The Qunyan army blocked the students' vision and they looked at each other in bewilderment. It's all right. The witness Long Ping, who was half kneeling on the ground, spoke calmly, and his words immediately attracted everyone's attention. "What's wrong?" someone asked. I said, "It's okay, it's going to be okay, we won't die." "Why?" "Because, he's here." It seemed that the taut string was finally relaxed. Long Ping sat on the ground without any scruples and began to breathe heavily. Who's here?" There are still many people who don't understand what is going on, only their hearts are still beating violently. Chu Chen. After taking a breath, Zhou Zheng Long Ping looked up. Following his gaze, the crowd looked upwards. The layers of magical beasts were still hovering above them. Only a pair of the most dazzling golden eyes shone through the numerous obstacles in the night sky. Chu Chen just floated in the air, staring at the strongest monster from afar. Finally arrived. Chu Chen glanced down lightly. He did not expect that the difficulty of the trial in the space would suddenly increase so much. It took him quite a while to get here after passing through numerous obstacles. Now, what concerned him most was the final leader in front of him, Wang Shi. Wang Shi's pair of compound eyes reflected Chu Chen's dense figure. Its head shook left and right, and the whole posture instantly changed from the original relaxation to a fighting form. It has been looking for someone worthy of its attack, and now that person is right in front of it. But what followed was a strong sense of danger. "You are their king." A low roar came out of Wang Shi's mouth, and the scales covering his body began to shine with a cold silver light. Along with its roar, it directly created a wave in the surrounding forest. Chu Chen held the Qunyan spear in his hand, with the tip of the spear pointed at Wang Shi. The Yuzhang shield surrounded his body, preventing him from being affected at all. The powerful aura emitted by the two enveloped everyone's heads, making the surrounding atmosphere extremely oppressive once again. "Let's make it quick and decisive." Chu Chen raised his left hand, and under his control, the rock element instantly condensed into a dense mass of rock spears around him. Once these rock spears were melted and cast, they shot out instantly. Each rock spear would draw a long golden arc in the air, and any magical beast that got in the way would be instantly smashed into a pool of flesh and blood. The rock spears that were swung out were as dense as jade, and in an instant they turned the surrounding monsters into pieces and tore them apart. Looking at this unavoidable attack, the scales on Wang Shi's body became even thicker. The rock spear shattered the scales directly when it hit him, making it difficult to cause any effective damage to him. After this round of gun rain attack, Wang Shi's expression became even more angry. The wings behind him shook violently, and in an instant he crossed a distance of hundreds of meters and came in front of Chu Chen. Wisps of green mist were wrapped around the extremely sharp claws on both hands. Although he hadn't come into contact with it yet, Chu Chen could already feel that the mist contained a very terrifying toxin. Clang! The Qunyan spear and Wang Shi's sharp claws collided instantly, and the rock element attached to the spear body, allowing it to effectively resist the erosion of the poisonous fog. And in the collision of their attacks, two huge forces intertwined with each other, spreading out huge impact forces in all directions at all times. If the students below were not firmly protected by the Qunyan army at this moment, they would probably be affected by the residual power now. After these two huge forces confronted each other for more than 10 seconds, a black shadow finally flew out from them. It was Wang Shi. Its pair of compound eyes revealed a deep sense of disbelief. The head-on confrontation just now ended with its defeat. As if unwilling to believe it, an even more powerful aura began to emanate from Wang Shi's body. His body went berserk once again, flashing with even more powerful force than before, and he began his second contest with Chu Chen. Boom boom! As the two of them continued to fight in the air, the huge and violent force turned into rounds of terrifying impact force in the collision and spread in all directions. Chu Chen really is a monster. His strength has increased so quickly. Is this the heaven level? What a scary guy! Looking up at the fierce battle above the sky, each of the intensive collisions seemed like a drum beating in the hearts of these students, making their blood boil. Everyone's heart was filled with emotion, astonishment, or fear. Before seeing it with their own eyes, before coming here, each of them was known as a genius in their original area. Their strength far exceeds that of other awakeners of the same age, which also makes them admired by ordinary awakeners. Even though they knew of Chu Chen's existence and had seen his battle footage, many people still felt that they would be able to catch up in no time. But only by witnessing it with their own eyes at this moment can they deeply understand that sometimes the gap between geniuses is greater than the gap between geniuses and ordinary people. In front of Chu Chen, the strength they were originally proud of was nothing at all. The soil dissipated, the rocks shattered, the trees fell, the blood and flesh flew everywhere. I don't know how many rounds of fighting went on, but the final result was the end of this round with Wang Shi's retreat. Now, the hard scales on Wang Shi's body have begun to show signs of damage, and its body has inevitably begun to show some injuries. But looking at Chu Chen, under the protection of the Yuzhang shield, not only were he not injured, even the corners of his clothes were not stained by dust. Looking at the rock-steady human in front of him, Wang Shi no longer attacked rashly as he had done before. Leaders like it have more or less intelligence, and as a third-order leader-level alien, Wang Shi's thinking ability is greatly enhanced. The previous 2 rounds of confrontation were more like tests than attacks. It can now conclude that it has no advantage in a head-on confrontation with the human being in front of it. In that case, the wings behind the king's servant flapped more violently, and at the same time, a new pair of wings extended from its back. Chapter 88. Wang Shi was panting heavily, and a huge wind was blowing from all around. The violent whistling of the wind instantly overwhelmed all other sounds in the world, and lines like magma began to appear on the scales of Wang Shi's body. Roar! Immediately afterwards, a deafening roar emanated from Wang Shi's mouth, and a fierce gust of wind swept towards Chu Chen. And it itself disappeared instantly from the spot. It didn't disappear instantly, but its speed was so fast that it was far beyond the ability of the eyes to track. He used the howling wind to block Chu Chen's senses, and then took the opportunity to launch a fatal blow. Its wishful thinking was good. The strong wind between heaven and earth was so violent that most people had no time to notice the situation around them. It quietly waited for its opportunity until it stretched out its sharp claws covered with red lines from under the cover of the strong wind. The 2 pairs of wings behind him waved almost transparently, and powerful force gathered in the claws of Wang Shi. It was confident that its attack was enough to cause a mountain to collapse. However, just as Wang Shi's attack was about to pierce Chu Chen's head, Chu Chen suddenly dodged, causing the opponent's attack to miss escaped. The king's servant's compound eyes, as bright as molten lava, revealed a strong sense of disbelief. Before he could think more, bang! Chu Chen's free left hand was instantly covered with golden elements, and his sharp claws clenched into a fist, hitting Wang Shi's head directly. The enormous force caused the scales covering that place to burst instantly, and Wang Shi's body retreated backwards, and his mind began to become dazed. His speed. Without giving it much time to think, Chu Chen's figure followed closely, wielding the rock spear with unstoppable force. The violent and swift attack made Wang Shi feel a little overwhelmed. His speed is faster than mine. Wang Shi quickly understood this point. The human in front of him was superior to him in both attack and speed. Its body was retreating step by step, while Chu Chen's attacks became more and more fierce. No matter how fast Wang Shi was, it was useless. Even with the cover of the strong wind, he could not hide his tracks. Because of the resonance with the surrounding land and rocks, Chu Chen is fully aware of the space within a certain range around him. As his level increased, this range had expanded to 1,000 meters in diameter. Once Wang Shi stepped in, his whereabouts would be completely exposed no matter how he tried to cover up. Wang Shi's breathing became more and more rapid. While resisting Chu Chen's attack, he kept looking towards the direction of the volcano. Bang! Qunyan's spear pierced through the scales on its left chest, revealing the hideous flesh and blood inside. The intense pain made Wang Shi roar uncontrollably. He tried his best to fly away, desperately wanting to distance himself from Chu Chen. After flying for several thousand meters, it finally escaped from Chu Chen's attack range and could see him from a distance. But now the king's servant is in an even more miserable state. His scales are in tatters and molten blood is constantly flowing out of his body. Every drop of blood that falls on the ground will instantly burn a small hole in the earth. Finally done. Suddenly, as if sensing something, Wang Shi's eyes began to reveal excitement. It looked towards the volcano, and suddenly let out a long roar towards the sky. Roar, the sound was ferocious and piercing. Even though they were well protected by the Qunyan army, the students below still covered their ears tightly. Boom! Then, the volcano erupted again. The hot smoke column was wrapped in red volcanic ash, and a group of dense black shadows flew out from the interior of the volcano. These were actually magical beasts that looked like the king's servants, but were much smaller in size. The aura of these small king's servants is weaker than that of the king's servants, but much stronger than other magical beasts present. There were so many of them, it seemed like there were tens of thousands of them, and they were flying freely in the air. Circling around the king's servant, it seemed to be its most loyal guard. A sharp laugh began to burst out of the king's servant's mouth. These were his guards, and he was the king of these guards. There is more than one egg in the volcano, and now it is surrounded by these guards. There are tens of thousands of guards. Wang Shi thought that his strength and speed were not as good as the human in front of him, but he had overwhelming numbers. Tens of thousands of guards attacked at the same time, and it wanted to see how long the human in front of it could hold out. Moreover, the role of these guards is more than that. From their bodies, the king's servant can absorb the power within the volcano. Its injuries begin to recover, and new scales begin to grow again. Moreover, after absorbing strength and recovering, it becomes more powerful than before. How? Human! It laughed. This is too much. In the meeting room, someone slammed the table and stood up. Even if Chu Chen is a heaven-level warrior, he is not capable of dealing with this kind of situation. Do we really want him to face such a great danger right now? What if something goes wrong? The person who spoke was a beautiful woman with a pretty face, and she was also a teacher at the Imperial Capital Academy. Regarding the test that Chu Chen was facing in the picture, she felt that the risk of this test had far exceeded the normal assessment range. So she wanted to stop the trial immediately, because if Chu Chen encountered any accident during the process, no one present would be responsible. Of course, taking responsibility is a small matter. What is more important is that if anything goes wrong, it will definitely be a huge loss for all of humanity. But before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by Mo Lao. Teacher Lu, won't Chu Chen ever face despair or even death? The goal of this trial has completely changed. Our goal now is to let the students experience desperate situations and death in advance, and Chu Chen is no exception. Besides, don't be so heartless. Would I just watch him get into an accident? Don't worry, I will never let anything happen to him. But before that, he must personally experience the process of life and death. Mr. Mo's expression was no longer as relaxed as before. He stared at the screen with a serious face. No one is more nervous than him now, and he is ready to take action at any time. Now, whether inside or outside the space, Chu Chen has become the central focus. They all wanted to know what Chu Chen's current limits were. Seeing that her proposal failed, the beautiful woman called Teacher Lu had no choice but to sit back in her seat. Looking at the content on the screen, she could only pray silently that no accidents would happen. Chapter 89. Wang Shi began to dance freely in the air. Surrounded by a group of guards, it quickly recovered from all its injuries and became even stronger than before. The scales of the king's servant began to turn black, and the molten lava patterns flowing on its body surface became more eye-catching. The two pairs of wings behind it merged together to form a pair of huge bone wings. With every breath it took, it felt an immense force filling every part of its body. Now everything in this world belongs to its territory. Its guards will occupy this place, and it, as the king, will issue the final judgment. It began to grin grimly, laughing at how weak and frail Chu Chen looked so insignificant in front of its guards. It laughed at the countless creatures on the ground, those students and low-level magical beasts. Now they could only do nothing but become their food and nutrients. It looked down at the ground in ecstasy. Stronger winds than before surrounded it. The magma gushing out of the volcano began to stain the earth. All of this was under its control. This is the most complete power of the king's servant clan. Every group of king's servant will have a strongest king's servant as the king, and the rest of the king's servant can only be guards. The other royal servants who had awakened with it and left this place before were not as powerful as it was. At best, they could only serve as relatively strong guards. The surging power in his body completely blinded Wang Shi's brain, and he now felt unprecedentedly powerful and confident. Wang Shi suddenly folded his bone wings, his eyes fixed on Chu Chen in the distance. Human, how is it? It wanted to see the same fear and despair on Chu Chen's face as on everyone else's. But to its surprise, Chu Chen's face did not show the expression it wanted, but a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Anger rushed into Wang Shi's brain. This was a contempt for the king. Any enemy who dares to disrespect the king will be thrown into the molten lava and his body will be destroyed. It was about to order the guards to tear the tiny and ignorant human in front of them into pieces, but Chu Chen in the distance moved his mouth again, as if saying something. Wang Shi couldn't hear clearly, but that didn't matter anymore. It was going to judge the disobedient ones. Roar! But at this moment, a vast and ancient dragon roar suddenly came from under the earth, and the majestic power contained in the sound made the earth begin to tremble. Why, there's an earthquake! The other students who were protected were surprised to find that hideous cracks began to appear on the ground in the distance. Immediately afterwards, the ground suddenly collapsed, and a huge figure jumped out from under the ground in an instant. The enormous force contained in his body surged in all directions, completely shattering the nearby rocks in an instant. A strong gust of wind swept around. Even though he was in the sky, Wang Shi could clearly feel the sudden emergence of a terrifying force. The Dragon King suddenly stood up, the earth shook, and the huge body of the Rhodra Dragon King finally appeared in front of everyone. After signing the contract, King Ruoda grew up with Chu Chen. The current King Ruoda's body size during combat is several times larger than before, and every dragon scale shines with dazzling golden light. The king's servant's body trembled violently. The intense sense of crisis made him react instantly. He controlled the magma flowing out of the volcano and rushed towards the Rhodaka Dragon King. Faced with this huge monster, it decided to use the power of the volcano to attack. However, the terrifying magma that ordinary people could not avoid was the best energy for King Ruoda. The red light enveloped its entire body, and King Ruoda instantly began to absorb the energy of the fire element from the magma. In an instant, huge lava fireballs bombarded the Wang Shi clan above the sky. The violent force accumulated together until it completely exploded in the air. The powerful force generated instantly created gaps in the guards densely packed in the sky. Is that a summoned beast? Is it really just a summoned beast? That kind of power? How could it be possible? It's simply a terrifying dragon. Was it summoned by Chu Chen? The flames rising into the sky reflected on everyone's face, and the flames in the air were as gorgeous as fireworks. However, those students no longer had the heart to appreciate it. The gap has been getting bigger and bigger, and has gradually reached a point where it is no longer possible to look directly at it. It's not over yet. Ice, thunder, water, and other elements also began to be extracted from under the earth by the Dragon King Yadra. Violent thunders fell from the sky, extremely freezing frost spread and froze, and huge streams of water began to sweep across. Now, King Rudra became the biggest threat, and it immediately ordered its guards to launch a fierce attack on the Dragon King. However, as soon as Chu Chen snapped his fingers, a huge jade shield instantly surrounded the huge body of the Rhodra. The guard's violent attack hit the shield, causing ripples. Giving a shield to the Ruoda Dragon King costs dozens of times more than giving a shield to anyone else. Chu Chen could feel that his energy level dropped a lot instantly. But fortunately, there is still enough left. Now, Chu Chen and Wang Shi were the only ones left in the sky, staring at each other from afar. His golden eyes were fixed on the king's servant, which made the king's servant tremble. This was the power from a higher king. A king encountered a stronger king. What the hell? What's going on? Most people in the conference room screamed. What did they see? Chu Chen summoned a terrifying dragon. I heard that someone saw Chu Chen driving this dragon in the ruins. I thought it was fake, but I didn't expect. The scene instantly fell into chaos, and Chu Chen once again overturned the cognition of most people. Sorry, I'm a little late because of something on the way. The trial isn't over yet, right? How are my students doing? The door of the conference room was suddenly pushed open, and Xiang Hanhai walked out with a smile on his face, followed by Mo Sui Han. When he saw the image on the screen, he nodded with satisfaction. Not bad, a normal performance. Old Xiang, you never told me that Chu Chen actually has such a trick. Mr. Mo shook his head in surprise, his tone clearly showing some displeasure. Haha, I know you are the main person in charge of this trial, so I specially left a surprise for you. Xiang Hanhai pulled out a seat and sat down. The terrifying power displayed by King Azhdaha in the picture is shocking even through the screen. It was like the end of the world. A representative of a country murmured. Chapter 90. The violent wind condensed into the sharpest blade, the lava turned into the hottest fireball, and the purple poisonous mist melted into thin needles. In just one breath, Wang Shi launched several fierce attacks. These attacks hit Chu Chen's shield but failed to cause any obvious damage. Everything was within Wang Shi's expectations. He was well aware of the terrifying nature of the enemy before him, and his ordinary methods would hardly have any effect on him. The attacks it launched using its elemental control ability were simply unable to effectively shake the opponent's shield. However, the strongest part of the strengthened Wang Shi is still his body. The pitch-black scales with flowing magma completely wrap his entire body. The muscles under the scales contain his most extreme strength now, which is far beyond the reach of his elemental attacks. Since he couldn't attack the opponent from a distance, Wang Shi had no choice but to engage in close combat with Chu Chen again. However, its heart was trembling a little. Will it work? Wang Shi has developed a fear of Chu Chen. The psychological role is particularly important in a battle. If it launches an attack when its self-confidence is just increasing, perhaps it can perform better. But it was a little late now. Wang Shi didn't want to and even dared not to attack rashly. But stalemate is not a solution. If it doesn't launch an attack, the enemy in front of it will also launch an attack. At this juncture, there is no other way but to take a gamble. Roar! Wang Shi let out a deafening roar, which was a deterrent and also to cheer himself up. The bony wings behind it spread out suddenly, and in an instant they cut through the air and launched an attack at a speed that was too fast to be viewed directly. A strong sonic boom roared, the remaining guards around also followed it to attack. Wang Shi naturally did not expect its guards to cause any harm to Chu Chen, but just hoped to have some influence so that he could find a suitable time to attack. At this moment, for the students on the ground, it was a scene they had never witnessed before. They couldn't see the battle trajectory between Chu Chen and Wang Shi clearly. At most, they could see elemental fluctuations passing through the air and leaving several long tails. In the dark night sky, the lightning of King Rodrigva occasionally illuminates the sky. In the gaps between the clouds, you may be able to catch a glimpse of its afterimage. Chu Chen and Wang Shi kept colliding in the air. Every collision was an explosion of attacks from both sides. The residual power of the explosion could instantly cut through the nearby clouds. For Chu Chen, the strengthened Wang Shi is also the most difficult enemy he has faced so far. He dare not be careless at all, because they are flying and colliding in the air at a high speed. The residual power caused by the attacks of both will inevitably have some impact on their spirits when their attention is highly concentrated. Now, no living creature dared to get involved in the vicinity of their battle, no matter whether it was the king's guards or other magical beasts. Anyone who gets even half a step closer will be torn into pieces by the terrifying impact force. In this area, the sky has become a restricted area, but the ground is also not to be touched. The dragon roar of the Rhodo Dragon King continues to rise, and the extremely cold frost spreads under its feet, which can instantly freeze the nearby monsters. Even though most of the king's guards were launching frantic attacks on the Rhodo Dragon King without fear of death, it seemed that their attacks could not cause any effective damage to the Rhodo Dragon King at the moment. It was more like they were stumbling and fleeing under the attack of King Rudra rather than fighting. Boom! The most violent bang sounded in the air, like two meteors colliding heavily with each other. The two quickly bounced away. Chu Chen's jade shield suddenly shattered, and his body was no longer spotless as before. His breathing began to rapid, and it was obvious that the previous collision consumed a lot of physical strength. As for Wang Shi, he looked even more miserable. The black scales on his body showed signs of damage again. Blood as hot as magma flowed out of his body. His chest, which was no longer protected by scales, was pierced by a heavy rock spear. The bones in this area were completely shattered. In the battle just now, Chu Chen had the upper hand. Someone in the crowd below exclaimed. That's right, no matter how you look at it, Wang Shi's injuries were more serious, which inevitably made their hopes even stronger. Roar! However, to everyone's surprise, Wang Shi actually reached out and grabbed the rock spear that pierced his body, and pulled it out of his body. The rock spear pulled out a small part of its flesh and internal organs, and the pain made Wang Shi roar violently. Until the rock spear was completely separated from its body, a group of guards instantly gathered around Wang Shi. These guards were torn apart and swallowed into Wang Shi's mouth in the blink of an eye. It was visible to the naked eye that its injuries began to heal rapidly, and any damage to its bones and organs was recovering. For the king of the Wang Shi clan, he can rely on devouring guards to quickly recover from any injuries. Wang Shi looked at Chu Chen vigilantly. Although his body had recovered, the disadvantage of this rapid repair was that his strength would recover more slowly than before. It dared not be careless at all, because death was just a matter of a moment now. However, time will not stop passing, and one of them must launch an attack no matter what. Because this is a battle to the death, there is no possibility of peace talks. Let's fight! The king's servant roared, and he would not hold back any more. It was meaningless for him to continue to prolong the battle. Now he would release all his strength and fight to the last moment. Wang Shi's eyes became even brighter, like two bright headlights in the night sky, and the terrifying power emanating from his body began to rise steadily. Its body disappeared again, fighting for its life. Wang Shi circled around Chu Chen rapidly, and finally exploded suddenly. It came in front of Chu Chen and attacked with all its strength. Even though Chu Chen had set up a new layer of shield, the Yuzhong shield obviously began to shatter under its final attack. At the same time, Chu Chen's sharp left hand, which was attached to the rock element and completely melted into gold, also grabbed Wang Shi's neck. The huge grip force made Wang Shi suffer terribly. He could only grit his teeth and continue to release his strength. The attack shattered the shield and finally touched Chu Chen. Blood began to flow from Chu Chen's body. Wang Shi was delighted. The other party was bleeding. It saw the hope of victory, but just as it was about to continue attacking, Wang Shi's entire body was suddenly carried into the sky. Wang Shi had no idea what Chu Chen was planning. His body was restrained tightly and he could only let the other party carry him to the highest point. Chapter 91. However, immediately afterwards, the scorching temperature and dazzling light above his head suddenly caught Wang Shi's attention. The higher you go, the darker and colder it should be, so why is the opposite happening? But Wang Shi was not too worried. It was not afraid of high temperatures. The molten blood flowing in its body gave its body extremely high resistance. But the next moment, a huge roar came from above his head. Perhaps it was because the distance was too close and the sound was too loud, Wang Shi felt as if his eardrum was about to break. Out of curiosity, it could only look up into the sky with all its might. The vision was not clear, but one could see a dazzling golden light that was about to cover it. The star is about to hit it on the head. This was what Chu Chen had planned. Under normal circumstances, the time it took for the stars to fall would be enough for Wang Shi to escape to an unknown distance. Therefore, if he directly used the heaven-moving all things skill, he would definitely not be able to hit Wang Shi. Then he could only give up defense, use his own strength to restrain the opponent, take Wang Shi to a high altitude, and shorten the distance between him and Tianxing. The high temperature brought by the falling star was far beyond what Wang Shi could resist. It began to emit extremely tragic roars, and the scales on its body began to gradually show signs of melting. It tried to escape, but it was too late. Until the light completely enveloped Wang Shi, Chu Chen endured the opponent's attack and dodged his body. Wang Shi's attack just now had penetrated deep into his abdomen, and blood was constantly flowing out at this moment. After the elemental explosion, Chu Chen's own strength was almost gone. He couldn't even fly for long, and soon he began to fall to the ground uncontrollably. However, the Ruotu Dragon King, who had already witnessed all this on the ground, suddenly jumped up, and its huge body leaped high into the sky. The rock element was released from its body, turning into a warm light shield that steadily caught Chu Chen in it. Wang Shi had already started an intimate collision with Tianxing, and its proud body began to explode instantly. The scales gradually disappeared, the flesh and blood scattered, the bones exploded, and the irresistible force swept it towards the ground. At the last moment, Wang Shi could only scream out of instinct, but the scream was soon drowned out by the roar. On the ground, everyone watched as the huge star continued to approach them, and the blazing flames could almost illuminate the surroundings. Everyone could only close their eyes and cover their ears until the star finally fell to the ground and violent power exploded instantly. A golden jade shield shone on everyone's body. The imagined feeling of their bodies exploding instantly did not occur, and they did not even feel the powerful shock wave generated by the explosion. It's just that no one knows how long the residual power lasted before it finally dissipated. After they could no longer feel the dazzling light, they opened their eyes again and found that they had not suffered any harm at all. As for the shields surrounding their bodies, they dissipated instantly before the students could take a closer look. In the conference room, except Xiang Hanhai and Mo Suihan who remained calm, everyone else looked shocked and in disbelief. Because according to the original plan, the opponent they arranged for Chu Chen was absolutely impossible to defeat. They wanted Chu Chen to experience some setbacks in advance and adapt to some negative emotions, but the development of things now has far exceeded everyone's expectations. That's a royal servant. It's no longer an ordinary magical beast, but a powerful alien race. Moreover, that royal servant is a mutant. Its strength is far superior to other royal servants of the same level. Someone exclaimed in surprise. Mr. Mo nodded gently. I placed this king's servant in the space to incubate it. I had never thought of sending it out because its power is definitely beyond the ability of the current students to contend with. Just because Chu Chen is an extraordinary existence, if I want to hone his character, I thought it would be enough to send out this king's servant, but I never thought that Chu Chen's current strength is actually so strong. This is truly the first case I've ever seen. Mo Lao frowned and said, it's a surprising and delightful existence. Elder Xiang, as Chu Chen's protector, you don't seem to be surprised by his current behavior. Do you know something? The attention in the conference room shifted to Xiang Hanhai, who remained calm in the face of adversity. As Chu Chen's bodyguard, he should know some information that ordinary people don't know. Seeing that everyone's eyes were turning towards him, Xiang Hanhai just took a sip of tea. I can't answer this question. I just met Chu Chen earlier than you. The reason why I am so calm is that I am used to it. Even if he can defeat a god-level strongman one day, I think I will not be surprised. It seems that you have a high opinion of Chu Chen's upper limit. The previous person said again. But I have a presumptuous question. For a genius like Chu Chen, well, a genius above all else, can your country guarantee that he can fight for our human race? I mean, if, just hypothetically, if Chu Chen betrayed me. A representative from a Western country suddenly stood up, but before he could finish his question, Xiang Hanhai suddenly interrupted him with a wave of his hand. My student, I can certainly guarantee that as long as there are no so-called preventive measures taken by some ill-intentioned fellow, he will never go astray. The development of the matter was within Xiang Hanhai's expectations. After seeing Chu Chen's amazing performance, some people would definitely think about this double-edged sword issue. But in his opinion, Chu Chen is the person who has the greatest hope of ending the invasion of all races, so the human race itself must have 100% trust in him. Blind suspicion and so-called prevention will probably only backfire. Senior Xiang, this is a question that cannot be avoided. We must imagine any possibility. Yes, for such an extraordinary existence, there is no reason for us not to take some precautions. What if? What if we train him and he turns against us? Then for us, I'm afraid. I think we should. A heated discussion took place in the conference room, and those who raised objections were none other than those from other countries besides Kyushu, saying that it was a preventive measure for the future of mankind. In essence, he is more or less unable to accept the fact that such changes have occurred in Zhou, and he is just a little psychologically unbalanced. However, before they could finish their words, they were interrupted by the sound of Xiang Hanhai suddenly putting down his teacup. Xiang Hanhai's originally gentle brows were now frowned, and a terrifying aura emanated from his body, filling every corner of the conference room. Now, there are no powerful god-level beings in this huge room. As top combat forces, they all have more important things to do. Therefore, Xiang Hanhai, who is in the late Kaishan realm and only one step away from the divine level, is undoubtedly the strongest person in the room, without a doubt. Sorry everyone, I have some minor health problems again and have to go to the hospital. I will only update twice today. I'm sorry. Chapter 92. If I say I can guarantee it, I can guarantee it. Xiang Hanhai's voice was cold, and his eyes were like those of a raging storm. Without any warning, his pupils lit up with a deep blue light, which was terrifying to those who saw it. At this moment, everyone in the conference room felt like they were in a lone boat on a sea with a tide thousands of meters high, with heavy dark clouds pressing down on their heads. The sudden thunder in the dark clouds was terrifying, and the howling tsunami made them shaky. Xiang Hanhai has already restrained his breath, otherwise this meeting room would have ceased to exist long ago. His strength did not diminish with the passage of time, and the murderous aura hidden in his body became even stronger. These are all internal affairs of Zhou. If anyone dares to mention it again, I won't mind giving my old bones some exercise. Xiang Hanhai spoke very bluntly. He didn't need to be nice to anyone here. Just because he is the strongest person present, no doubt about it. Power is the final say that determines everything. No, we have no bad intentions, since your country has such confidence, it is naturally the best. The man who spoke first broke out in a cold sweat. He had been comfortable for too long that he forgot how terrifying the old man sitting in front of him was. Me too. In that case there is no need to discuss this issue any further. I believe Zhou will be able to do everything well in this regard, so we won't say anything more. Yes. Except for the people from Kyushu, most of the people from other countries present had just made strange suggestions to a greater or lesser extent. But now, under the intimidation of Xiang Hanhai, they all changed their tune. Although the contrast between the before and after is huge, no one will laugh because everyone knows very well how terrifying Xiang Hanhai is. Maybe one day, he will be able to take the last step and reach the god level. Okay, let's just put this little episode behind us. In short, we can prepare to end this trial before entering the special training camp. Mo Lao sighed and said. The scene in the space just now was so huge that it should have exceeded the scope of a normal trial. Therefore, after the final leader Wang Shi was killed by Chu Chen, there was no need to continue this trial. By the way, what happened to the other heaven-level awakeners who faced the king's servant? Someone asked. The screen began to change, and the main screen that originally showed Chu Chen's figure began to show the images of other people. The situation is not optimistic. Although the king's servant they are facing is not as powerful as Chu Chen, it should not be underestimated. And considering that these heavenly level people have just awakened not long ago, we did not have much hope that they could defeat the king's servant at the beginning. Most of them failed. Some of them succeeded in killing their opponents, but they were also seriously injured. I have taken them out for treatment. However, there are still monsters among the others. Mr. Mo took out another bottle of beer and took a sip. He looked up at the roof and moved his fingers, and the picture on the big screen changed again. He was a burly red-haired man, his whole body covered with red scales, and a pair of huge red flesh wings behind him were fully stretched out, showing a beastly form. The man was holding a head in his hand. It was Wang Shi's head. At his feet lay the corpses of magical beasts piled up into small hills. Apparently, the man succeeded in defeating his opponent. Moreover, he did not seem to have suffered any serious injuries. Apart from some traces of friction on the scales on his body, there was nothing unusual. Mr. Mo looked vague and said solemnly, "Chihong Flamel, he belongs to the Holy Church of Light, and he is the best performer in this training camp, except for Chu Chen. By the way, the Holy Church of Light didn't send any representatives to participate in the observation." Xiang Hanhai glanced around. Well, I don't know what they were thinking. Chihong is the most talented and outstanding person in the history of their church. They sent such an important person to participate, but did not send a representative to evaluate with us. I don't know what those charlatans were thinking. Old Mo exhaled a breath of alcohol, then waved his hand to create a barrier between him and Xiang Hanhai. He whispered, "Old Xiang, you told me that Chu Chen had been to the ruins before, and that he had a conflict with the people of the Holy Church of Light in the ruins, right?" Xiang Hanhai's expression began to become serious. Yes, could it be that? This Chihong is the brother of the man who had a conflict with Chu Chen. A ray of pale golden sunlight suddenly rose from the eastern horizon, announcing the arrival of daylight. All the monsters disappeared silently, and everyone left in the space received a message at the same time: the trial is over. Chu Chen sat on the back of the Rodra Dragon King, the sunlight shone on them, leaving a layer of golden light. The injury on his abdomen has recovered thanks to his powerful self-healing ability, but the energy consumed in his body will take time to slowly replenish. He also received the news that the trial was over, and his anxious heart was finally able to relax for a short while. Ding! Congratulations to the host for leveling up. Current level, LV, 26. After killing Wang Shi and countless Warcraft minions, Chu Chen's level finally increased by 2 levels compared to before. He then opened the system panel, and in the system space, there was now an additional black and white longbow, royal longbow attributes, basic attack power plus 100, attack power plus 10%, critical hit rate plus 8% weapon skills, charge, pulling the bowstring to charge will give you the following bonuses: increase damage by 80% to 50%, depending on the charging time, critical hit rate increased by 10% 50%, depending on charging time, this skill will have a 10-second cooldown. The longbow of the old nobility will not be lonely because of the corruption of the old nobility. The soul of the rebels will always flow in their blood. The weapon obtained after defeating Wang Shi happened to be a longbow. The specific properties are slightly different from the game in Chu Chen's memory. However, it is very handy for him. This royal longbow is obviously good at charged shooting. Once the skill effect is fully stacked, the damage shot out will be particularly terrifying. In general, it was not a complete loss. Chu Chen's strength was greatly enhanced after the previous battle. He looked towards the ground in the distance, and all the surviving students' eyes were now focused on him. Chapter 93. The Qunyan army that was protecting these students had long since disappeared. They looked at Chu Chen sitting on the giant dragon in the distance, and the scenes of the previous battle replayed in their minds from time to time. These geniuses from various regions now felt an unbridgeable gap between themselves and Chu Chen. Although they are of the same age, in the eyes of most people, the gap between them and Chu Chen is as huge as heaven and earth. However, they did not have time to think too much, as the bodies of these students gradually began to become transparent and dissipate. The trial was over, and everyone began to be gradually teleported out of the space. But the strange thing was that Chu Chen watched other people disappear one after another in front of his eyes, but there was no movement from his side. Soon, everyone was teleported to reality, and only Chu Chen was left sitting alone on the back of the Ruota Dragon King in the wilderness within the space. However, he was not at all anxious because he had not been teleported out. Instead, Chu Chen put his hands behind his head, lay on Ruota's back, and quietly watched the rising sun in the distance. He was too tired. The breeze in the early morning blew gently on his face, making Chu Chen feel very comfortable. He was too lazy to think too much and just wanted to close his eyes and have a good sleep. And the Ruota under him had already closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. It would be nice if time stood still at this moment. Chu Chen thought so. At least at this moment his mind was completely empty. He didn't need to think about anything, he just needed to quietly feel the new sunshine shining on him. Just as he was about to close his eyes, a cup of rich and fragrant tea was suddenly handed to him. The hand holding the teacup looked a bit old. Mr. Xiang. Chu Chen was a little surprised. At this moment, the world was completely silent, except for the faint sound of Ruotuo's snoring. Xiang Hanhai had been standing behind him at some point, handing him a cup of tea with one hand and holding a cup of the same tea in the other hand, which he sipped from time to time. Same good tea as last time, I forgot to give you some before you left. Xiang Hanhai placed the teacup in Chu Chen's hand, then sat down beside him with a smile. Don't worry, the trial is over. Now I am in charge of this space. No one will monitor you from behind anymore. Xiang Hanhai said casually, and he did not forget to reach out and gently pat the scales on the back of the Ruota Dragon King below him. I didn't expect your summoned beast's appearance would change. It's very flat now. The originally sharp and rugged carapace on the back of the Ruota Dragon King is now neatly spread out on the back, so Chu Chen and the others can sit on it safely. Your strength has become even stronger than before, and your speed is so fast. Xiang Hanhai suddenly said again. Mr. Xiang, what do you want to say? Chu Chen could tell that there seemed to be a hidden meaning in the other person's words. He put down the tea that was about to reach his mouth again, and the atmosphere around him inevitably became a little depressing. You can quickly become stronger through fighting, right? Xiang Hanhai's voice suddenly became low. Before Chu Chen could reply, he continued, you know what I mean. Every awakener can become stronger through fighting, but it will never be so fast. You always give me the feeling that you are so efficient. As long as you defeat the enemy in front of you, your strength will definitely be stronger than before. It is impossible for ordinary awakeners to have such a fast effect. Is it a talent? Xiang Hanhai's voice was calm but contained some doubts. Well, through fighting I can quickly increase my strength, but the results won't be that quick. Chu Chen knew that Xiang Hanhai had noticed something. This obvious thing did not require others to pay too much attention. For such an old fox, there was no need for him to hide anything. That would only seem more ridiculous. Really? This kind of talent is the first time I've seen it. You are indeed different. It seems that I have a good opinion of you. The biggest difference between you and other heaven-level people is that their highest level can only be heaven level, while you are only heaven level because the highest level we have defined is heaven level. You can also realize that you will attract a lot of attention, right? I knew that from the day I awakened my talent, when I had no intention of hiding it, my performance would definitely attract the attention of the world. Yes, remember what I told you before? There are a lot of people paying attention to you now. Of course, some of these people are good and some are bad. They have different purposes and identities. Some want to protect you, and some want to destroy you. As your strength grows, these guys hiding in the darkness will begin to stir. Xiang Hanhai sighed, the people who want to destroy you are not just aliens, but also humans. They may be foreigners, or they may be from Kyushu, but it doesn't matter because people are complicated. Maybe it's just out of a little jealousy in their hearts, or maybe it's for some other reason. I don't quite understand. Chu Chen took a sip of tea to calm himself. The current situation of mankind is not optimistic. The past 100 years of peace were bought at the cost of a series of wars with heavy casualties. Besides, the current peace is just a false peace. I think you, Mr. Xiang, know the situation on the void battlefield better than I do. Humanity is not sure of victory now. The biggest problem is the covetous eyes of all races. How come so many guys still have the leisure to fight among themselves? Hearing his question, Xiang Hanhai was silent for a long time before speaking. Oh, from ancient times to the present, there has always been internal strife in history, because humans are very complex creatures. When faced with the invasion of foreign enemies, everyone makes different choices. At the very beginning, when humans had not yet awakened, the myriad races suddenly descended one day, and of course, the magical beasts also suddenly appeared. At that time, some of the myriad races were much more powerful than humans in terms of genes. Without the help of technology, humans would not be able to resist even a little bit of the myriad races. This is an indelible fact. At that time, humans were too weak in front of those alien races. You should know the theory of evolution that only the fittest survive. Some paranoid people believe that as a race with superior genes, the alien race should eliminate humans with weak genes. That initial moment was truly the darkest moment for mankind. Xiang Hanhai closed his eyes slightly, as if he was going to tell a history that was too cruel and dark. Chapter 94. No one knows what on Blue Star attracts so many alien races to come here, and it seems that they have reached some kind of contract among themselves. Contract. Hearing these two words, Chu Chen was suddenly stunned. Rock God, Demon God, Martial God, Rock Lord. Rock King Morix has many titles, among which one is called God of Contract. So Chu Chen seemed a little sensitive about the word contract. Well, it's a contract, right? Have you ever thought about it? There are so many alien races, and naturally their strengths are not equal. But why can they join forces to attack us, while there are very few internal fights among them, and occasionally there are only small frictions? This shows that something is restraining them. I guess it's a contract, but it could also be something else. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, those beasts launched the attack with determination. Xiang Hanhai rubbed his brows and said with emotion, relying on the power of science and technology, humans began to struggle against these foreign enemies. However, although it is called a struggle, in fact, all they can do is passive defense, and there are very few opportunities to take the initiative to attack. In short, the First War was a period of darkness and chaos, with people living in misery. The human population was drastically reduced. For humans at the time, this was an almost hopeless war. There was no awakening at that time, and most humans were on the verge of despair. At that time, it was difficult to continue relying on technology alone. People had to find other ways, and among them, a very dirty plan was proposed. What's the plan? From the dirty words, Chu Chen could guess that the plan was not glorious. Hush, these are all hidden histories. We know that among all races, some have very strong individual powers, so someone at the time asked if there was a way to transfer the power of these alien races to humans. The simplest method is undoubtedly to let humans and these alien races give birth to mixed blood offspring, so this plan began. When humans were lucky, they were able to capture some aliens alive and conduct experiments on them with active or passive humans. In order to produce perfect offspring, they tried many methods, which even ignored gender and ethics. Xiang Hanhai's voice became increasingly low, as if he was also ashamed and unwilling to continue speaking, but he still insisted. The bloodiest, most barbaric and most cruel scenes all occurred during the experiment. In short, after paying a huge price, the experiment did make some progress. Some offspring with normal appearances were cultivated while being able to acquire some of the power of alien races. Before the emergence of the Awakeners, hybrid offspring like these were an important part of the human race's combat power. However, this experiment has never achieved perfect results, and the offspring bred are only barely usable. These offspring themselves also have great hidden dangers, because there is a part of alien race in their genes, and sometimes they do not agree with humans. There was even a scene where the hybrid descendants collectively counterattacked and attacked humans. However, this did not stop some people at the time from conducting research. Instead, they intensified their research. The subjects of their experiments were not limited to alien races, but even magical beasts were included in the mix. In short, this cruel history continued until the time when the Awakeners appeared. No one knows where the power of awakening comes from. It may be that the brutal invasion of all races and the desperate and dirty self-help methods of mankind are too much for even the heavens to bear. In any case, the awakened appeared. At this point, humans can rely on their own training to have power that is no less than that of all races, or even superior to them. And the dirty hybrid plan was also stopped and abolished along with the awakening exploration. But although the plan was abolished, a large number of hybrid offspring had been cultivated among humans at that time. Humans used extraordinary means to eliminate some of the hybrids who were hostile to humans, but many are still hidden. Later, as time passed, through generations, it became difficult for humans to distinguish those with alien genes, so the alien genes were passed down among humans. Xiang Hanhai's words surprised Chu Chen. In the 18 years since he came to this world, he had never heard of such a period of history. Speaking of it, it is indeed difficult to talk about. Xiang Hanhai then went on to say, but the genes of the alien race are just hidden. They are always there, and the descendants who carry these genes have been passed down to this day, and their appearance is almost the same as that of ordinary humans, which makes it difficult for us to discover them now. These mixed blood descendants are full of instability. Some can stick to their own hearts and identify themselves as humans, while others will get lost and become a human-looking alien. They may even stand on the side of the alien race. The Church of all races that you are familiar with has many descendants of mixed races in addition to pure humans. Chu Chen nodded. No wonder the Church of all races has grown so strong. It turns out that part of the reason is due to genes. Xiang Hanhai sighed heavily. We can't help it. This is all humankind's own fault. Until now, there are still many mixed race descendants hiding among us. They may have awakened the genes of alien races and taken root among us as traitors. He patted Chu Chen on the shoulder from behind. Now, do you know how dangerous you are? I understand, but I still have a question. If the genes of mixed races are passed down, then wouldn't it be possible that many gifted awakeners also have genes of alien races in their bodies? Chu Chen suddenly thought of it. You don't have to worry about this. Awakening is the last straw God has given to mankind. According to our research, the offspring of mixed blood genes have certain defects. Because their bloodline is not pure, their awakened talents will be very inferior. From the mixed blood offspring discovered from ancient times to the present, their awakened talents are basically at the sea level or below. Occasionally, some can be AORB level. As for special sequences, we have never seen them before. Xiang Hanhai drank the last sip of tea. In short, I want to tell you not to let your guard down. Danger is always like a venomous snake waiting for an opportunity. It might bite you at any time. Of course, we will do our best to protect you. This is a matter of mutual trust between you and me. I will trust you 100%. The country will do its utmost to create the most favorable conditions for you. I hope you can live up to expectations and always stick to the original intention of a human being. Is that okay? Xiang Hanhai looked straight into Chu Chen's eyes, as if expecting his response. Of course, Mr. Xiang, this is a matter of mutual trust. I think we can sign a contract. After thinking for a while, Chu Chen suddenly said. Contract? Interesting, of course. A contract that you will never break. Is there any penalty? Chu Chen pondered for a moment, then chuckled, punishment. Mr. Xiang, the contract has been concluded. Anyone who breaks his promise will be punished by being eaten by the rock. Chapter 95. What exactly is the power of a contract? At Chu Chen's current level, he has not yet unlocked any abilities related to the contract. Chu Chen didn't know whether the contract just drawn up was valid or not. All in all, his level is still too low, and what he has unlocked of Rock King's divine power is still just the tip of the iceberg. There's no room for breathing. Chu Chen sighed softly. As he grew older, the danger seemed to be getting heavier. Oh, by the way, there is one more thing I need to tell you. Do you remember the person from the Holy Church of Light that you met in the ruins earlier? Xiang Hanhai suddenly said again. Chu Chen immediately thought of the red-haired man and nodded. I gathered some intelligence before I came. Although the guy who clashed with you managed to escape from you, his awakened angel power was severely damaged by you. Both his talent and strength were greatly weakened. In short, he is almost a useless person. It's all your own fault. Chu Chen was not surprised. After all, the red-haired man had wanted to use their lives for sacrifice before. He was lucky that he escaped as a disabled man. Of course. I absolutely agree with you on this matter. However, that person has a younger brother. His name is Chihong Flamel. He also just awakened this year. His talent is also heavenly. As for his strength, you are the first in this trial, and he is the second. Although Xiang Hanhai did not say it explicitly, Chu Chen already heard some of the meaning. Isn't it just that after he beats the younger one, the older one comes? But this time it's the other way around, he beats the older one, and now a younger one comes out. Does he want revenge on me? Chu Chen chuckled. Haha, they are not as naive as you think. Both you and Qihong are among the top geniuses of mankind. If you quarrel with each other, it will not be good for the entire human race. After all, our biggest enemy is still the myriad races, right? Qihong wants to take revenge on you. Not to mention that we won't allow it, even the Holy Church of Light will strictly forbid it. Although there are constant small frictions between the various forces in daily life, most people are still normal in serious matters. Humans will never allow any life and death struggles to occur between the top geniuses. Xiang Hanhai smiled and sighed, however, although it won't become a life and death duel, Qihong must still have some opinions about you. You should be a little more cautious with him. Although everyone has forbidden it, no one can guarantee what will happen if Qihong goes crazy. So, if that kid is really childish enough to fight you to the death, or stab you in the back, don't worry, just kill him. Xiang Hanhai rubbed his brows. If the situation gets to the point of an accident, you must put your life first. As long as you survive, we will take care of any guilt for you. Mr. Xiang, I am moved by what you said. Chu Chen said half-jokingly. Of course, no one is more important than you. Xiang Hanhai patted his shoulder with a smile, then leaned close to his ear and whispered, of course, the premise just now is that you have no other choice. As long as Qihong behaves well and it's just a minor fight, you can just teach him a lesson, and don't make things too serious. Chu Chen nodded, of course I understand. I'm not that naive. As long as that guy is safe, the outcome is entirely up to him. Well, you always do things that make people feel at ease. Strangely enough, whenever I see you, my tense nerves instantly calm down, making me feel at ease. Anyway, now that the trial is over, let's get ready to go out. Xiang Hanhai stood up and straightened his collar. Since you can quickly become stronger by constantly fighting, we must also find a way to create more favorable conditions for you. After being teleported out of the trial space, what Chu Chen saw was a large group of people gathered around him. Chu Chen took a quick look and saw students like him, soldiers in uniform, and other staff members in different attire. His appearance instantly attracted the attention of the people around him, and he gradually got used to this feeling of attracting attention. Pa, pa, pa. First there was applause from a few people, and then others also applauded. The intense applause rang in Chu Chen's ears, and congratulations in different languages also came through the translation headphones. It was nothing more than some words of praise and congratulations on his winning first place in this trial. However, with the lively atmosphere around him, Chu Chen suddenly noticed an intriguing gaze staring at him from somewhere through the layers of the crowd. Through resonance with the earth, Chu Chen found the source of this gaze, a red-haired man. From his previous conversation with Xiang Hanhai, he could tell at a glance that the guy with the unfriendly eyes was obviously Qihong. At this moment, Qihong was standing on the outskirts of the crowd with a gloomy face. As if he realized that he was being watched by him, Qihong snorted coldly, then turned around and left. Look, everyone is cheering for you. Xiang Hanhai's figure appeared beside him again. Then he announced to the people around him, everyone, a small trial is over. Everyone has performed well. The dormitories have been cleaned up in advance. You can go and have a good rest. If you are hungry, go to the cafeteria. There will be hot meals available 24 hours a day. After a brief silence, the surrounding crowd suddenly burst into earth-shaking cheers again. Although these students who participated in the trial were gifted geniuses with great responsibilities on their shoulders, they were just a group of children now. Amid their laughter and joy, they quickly dispersed. How about it? Do you want to rest first or eat first? Forget it. I've asked someone to pack the food and send it to your dormitory. Just go to the dormitory and follow me. Xiang Hanhai raised his foot and walked forward, and Chu Chen followed him. Through Xiang Hanhai's introduction along the way, Chu Chen realized that the area where they were training was a huge fortress located on the edge of the desert. This was originally the rear area where the army was stationed, because there were traces of all races and monsters appearing in the desert. We need to make you grow up as quickly as possible. There is no faster or more efficient way than fighting. Xiang Hanhai said with emotion. That means we are likely to encounter a monster riot or an invasion by all races here. No, not very likely, but maybe it will become a daily routine. Chapter 96. Finally, Xiang Hanhai brought him to an area full of villas. Is this the dormitory? Chu Chen was a little surprised. He thought the conditions and environment for such training would be very bad. You can endure hardships but not suffer. If we can do it, we will definitely provide you with the most comfortable resting environment. Not only you students, but also the soldiers stationed here. It's annoying enough that they face life-threatening situations every day. We will also do our best to provide them with accommodation and logistical support. Xiang Hanhai raised his eyebrows, and then asked, each dormitory building can accommodate 2 people. Others are randomly assigned. You can choose whatever you want, except for the opposite S**x. Of course, if you really want to, it's not impossible, but you have to get the other person's consent first. Forget it, let Feng Xiaokaiju and I share a dormitory. Chu Chen waved his hand. Among these students, he was only more familiar with Feng Xiaokaiju, so he simply let that boy be his roommate. No problem. Xiang Hanhai handed a card to Chu Chen, your room card. We have set up restrictions in advance for each villa. It is absolutely forbidden to enter without the permission of the room card. Then you should have a good rest first. I still have a lot of things to do. Xiang Hanhai shrugged, then turned and left without much hesitation. Entering the villa with the room card, the furniture and decoration inside are already perfect and luxurious, and there is a pile of delicious food on the dining table. Chu Chen went to the bathroom to take a shower first, washing away his fatigue, and then went to the dining table to have a feast. It has to be said that the food in the training camp tastes better than anything he has ever eaten before. The meat is tender, the rice grains are plump, the soup is rich, and the taste is unforgettable. After packing up his things, Chu Chen collapsed on the sofa and looked at his phone board. Drop. Along with the sound coming from the door, Feng Xiaokaiju's figure walked out from outside. FK. It's really hot in a fortress on the edge of the desert. He walked in sweating profusely, and when he saw Chu Chen sitting on the sofa, Feng Xiaokaiju's eyes lit up instantly. He took 2 steps at a time and leaned over, Brother Chu, what a fate. Yes, fate. Chu Chen distanced himself from Feng Xiaokaiju. This guy now only smelled of sweat. Sorry, Brother Chu, I'll go clean up first. Feng Xiaokaiju grabbed his collar and smelled it. The smell made him feel a little nauseous. While he was washing up, Chu Chen suddenly remembered the Qihong that Xiang Hanhai had talked about. With great interest, he began to search for relevant information on his mobile phone. But it is strange that, as a heavenly level awakener, there is very little information about Qihong on the internet, and the existing information does not contain any specific content. It just said that Qihong's awakened talent was related to the gods, and he was accepted by the Holy Church of Light as one of the sons of gods. I heard that there are 10 sons of gods in the Holy Church of Light, and each of them is extremely talented and powerful. They will all be the future ruling class of the Holy Church of Light. But too much detailed information is difficult to display. It seemed that it was hidden intentionally. Brother Chu, I'm done cleaning up. After cleaning up, Feng Xiaokaiju came out again. Chu Chen suddenly thought that Feng Xiaokaiju's family background was extraordinary, and the intelligence network should be able to know something, so he immediately asked, Xiao Chu, do you know Qihong who is training with us? Of course I know. Brother Chu, you are the first in the trial, and he is the second. He is far worse than you, Brother Chu. Feng Xiaokaiju returned. So do you have any specific information about him, such as his abilities? Well. Feng Xiaokaiju fell into deep thought, and then said, Brother Chu, wait for me. He took out another computer from his storage ring and kept typing on the keyboard. After a while, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, Brother Chu, I found it. Qihong's awakening ability is related to the gods. This is why he was worshipped as the Son of God by the Holy Church of Light. The god related to his awakening is called Tiamat. Tiamat. Chu Chen thought about it and realized that it was a name he had never heard of. It is a giant dragon in mythology, also known as the Earth Mother Dragon. This Qihong can gradually transform into a beast through his own abilities. I heard that he can eventually completely transform himself into a giant dragon to fight. During this trial, Qihong demonstrated his ability to transform into a half-dragon. Feng Xiaokaiju turned the computer screen to Chu Chen again. There was a picture on it. Qihong's body was covered with red scales, his fingers and feet had taken the shape of sharp claws, and there was a pair of huge flesh wings behind him. It does look majestic. Then, Feng Xiaokaiju spread his hands again, it's very strange. Someone must have deliberately hidden this information about Qihong. This is all I can find out so far. It's okay, this is enough. Chu Chen waved his hand. He didn't care about Qihong. He just wanted to take a look on a whim. If he wanted more specific information, he could go find Mr. Xiang. I believe that as high-level figures, the information they possess must be much more detailed. The two did not discuss for long, as the exhaustion from the trial soon came back to them. Feng Xiaokai yawned and returned to his room first, while Chu Chen walked out of the villa and flew high into the sky. The fortress was protected by a thick energy barrier on all sides, and even the high altitude was blocked, so Chu Chen did not fly too high. The surrounding borders in the distance were surrounded by tall and solid walls. Looking outward, one could vaguely see a desolate and dark desert. The sand in this desert is all black in color. At first glance, it looks like a dark giant beast entrenched on the earth, deep and boundless. Chu Chen opened his system panel. His level has now reached level 26, which means he has reached the middle stage of the third order. It won't take too long for him to enter the fourth level of Mountain Moving Realm. I wonder what new abilities he will be able to unlock by then? Just when he was feeling quite yearning, a figure below suddenly caught his attention. Because this place is located in the desert and it is summer, the temperature outside is very hot. Apart from the patrolling soldiers, there is basically no one inside the fortress. The place where the figure was located was right next to the villa where he lived. He could only be seen wandering around their door stealthily, as if hesitating about something. Chapter 97. The blue-haired girl was stealthily wandering around the gate of the villa. As she swayed, she would occasionally poke her head inside from the window. Several times he walked up to the door and pretended to knock, but in the end he pulled his hand back, appearing particularly hesitant. "What's up?" Chu Chen landed behind the girl silently. His voice obviously startled the other party. The girl's face turned red from pale to red in an instant, and she said quickly, "No. No, sorry." But when the girl saw Chu Chen's appearance clearly, a look of joy suddenly appeared on her face. Chu Chen immediately realized that the other person's face was very familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Suddenly, he remembered that the girl in front of him was Lu Mengli, whom he met when he had just awakened and participated in the assessment trial. "Is it you?" Chu Chen said with some doubt. Chu Chen, do you still remember me?" Seeing that he recognized her, Lu Mengli was very surprised. "Of course, you saved me then." Although he did not need help at that time, Lu Mengli did help out of kindness. Chu Chen remembered it very clearly. Lu Mengli is also from a special sequence, so Chu Chen was not surprised to see her appear in the special training camp. However, the boys and girls dormitories in the special training camp are separated, so it was obvious that the other party came here for something. I just saw you were here too, so I came over to see you." "Nothing happened." Lu Mengli waved her hands in panic. When Chu Chen heard her words, he was a little stunned and didn't know what to say for a moment. Well, nothing much, I just want to come and see you, I'm leaving." Lu Mengli's words became more and more incoherent, except for the first time she looked up at Chu Chen. At other times, he kept his head down, looking very helpless. After saying this, without waiting for Chu Chen's response, Lu Mengli turned around and ran back to the girls' dormitory area. Chu Chen was left alone, scratching his head, feeling somewhat confused. But he was too lazy to think too much. After all, 90% of his mind was now focused on becoming stronger, and he really didn't have the leisure to think about anything else. The next day, ding ding ding. The piercing sound woke all the students from their sweet dreams. It was their assembly signal. The training camp officially begins. Feng Xiaokai trembled violently, then he jumped up from the bed, put on his clothes and ran out of the room. He came to the door of Chu Chen's room and shouted anxiously, "Brother Chu! Wake up! We are about to gather." Before he finished speaking, Chu Chen's slow voice came from the sofa in the living room, "I know. Take care of yourself first." He had packed up everything long ago and was drinking tea leisurely, holding a newspaper in his hand and reading it with interest. Feng Xiaokai scratched his head in annoyance and asked in confusion, "Brother Chu, why aren't you in a hurry at all? I heard that the instructor is very strict. If you are late, you will definitely suffer the consequences." "Yeah, so good luck to you." Chu Chen smiled. "What do you mean by wishing me good luck? Aren't you participating too?" Feng Xiaokai's face was full of confusion. Chu Chen did not answer his question, but looked at the clock on the wall, you've wasted 2 minutes just talking to me. FK. Forget it, Brother Chu, I don't care about you anymore. Feng Xiaokaihu pushed open the door and ran straight towards the training ground. And Chu Chen really doesn't need to train with them. He received a message from Xiang Hanhai last night that there would be a special training plan for him personally. But now, it is indeed almost time for his training. Chu Chen swallowed the last sip of tea and put away the newspaper. After walking out of the door, he turned and walked in the opposite direction of the crowd. He walked forward and soon arrived at the gate at the border of the fortress. Mo Suihan had been waiting here for a long time. Come with me. Under the leadership of Mo Suihan, Chu Chen passed through one heavily guarded checkpoint after another and finally came to a huge iron gate. There are actually many magical beasts gathered underground outside the fortress. The lowest level of the magical beasts here is level 3. The deeper you go, the higher the level. Mr. Xiang said that for safety reasons, you can only practice at the outermost part of the underground now. Mo Suihan introduced. After knowing that Chu Chen mainly relied on fighting to become stronger, Xiang Hanhai immediately changed his strategy and opened a single door for him to clear out the monsters. Chu Chen nodded, I understand, Mr. Mo. I'll go in then. Well, remember that safety comes first. We will always keep an eye on you. After saying hello, Chu Chen pushed open the iron gate and slowly walked in under the surprised gazes of Mo Suihan and the other soldiers stationed here. Behind the iron gate was a dark passage leading straight downwards, with only faint lights flickering on the walls on both sides. Chu Chen's eyes began to shine, and a golden jade shield immediately surrounded him. Along the way, Chu Chen kept scanning the surrounding caves. They did not look like they were artificially excavated. They were uneven and very complicated. About 200 meters underground, the terrain no longer went downward, but began to extend in all directions. Buzz! There was a strange sound in front, and a stream of hot air suddenly rushed towards Chu Chen. Bang! A huge stick hit the shield heavily, but the stick shattered instantly as soon as it made contact, while the Yuzhang shield was still as new as before. A few doubtful voices came from the darkness, and then several orc-like monsters slowly emerged from all directions. Roar! The leading orc seemed very angry. He raised a large iron sword in his hand and was about to chop down Chu Chen's head. But before it could finish accumulating strength, a huge rock spear instantly pierced through its chest. The smelly blood spurted out immediately. Behind Chu Chen, several thousand rock soldiers appeared at some point. The spear that pierced the orc was in the hand of one of them. The rest of the orcs were very surprised by the scene before them, but before they could react, the other 1,000 rock soldiers behind Chu Chen rushed forward in an instant and poked a big hole in them all. Chu Chen doesn't need to take action against the low-level monsters, he can just leave it to the Qunyan army. Now the number of Qunyan soldiers he can control has reached 18. Chu Chen planned to divide them into 6 groups of 3 each, and have them sweep in different directions around the underground periphery. In this way, efficiency can be improved more conveniently. Chapter 98. Under Chu Chen's command, the Gu Qunyan army began to advance in all directions, and he could also keep in touch with the Qunyan army at any time through resonance. Chu Chen formed a team and continued to advance in his direction. The air that blew in my face carried a strong smell of dust. The cave became wider and wider as I went further, but it also became darker and darker. Suddenly, a huge figure jumped out from the darkness. It was a magical beast about the size of an ordinary person, flapping its wings like a bat. It flies very fast, and the impact force it brings is definitely not small. But for Chu Chen, it is still too weak. He didn't need to do it himself. A huge rock hand suddenly condensed from the ground under his feet, blocking the bat's flight path and grabbing it tightly in his hand when it was about to attack Chu Chen. The bat did not die immediately. It kept screaming from its mouth. The sound was very strange, like some strange sound waves, which made Chu Chen feel a little abnormal. He then ordered Iwei to exert force, and the huge grip force directly killed the bat in his hand. The strange sound waves also dissipated in the cave. Chu Chen couldn't help but rub his brows. The monsters in this cave were different from ordinary monsters. They seemed to have some abilities that could interfere with human senses. However, the news sent back by the Qunyan army that was sent out was good. Nothing unusual happened on their way forward. Looking at the experience bar marked on his system panel, the amount required to upgrade with ordinary monsters is very huge. Unless he can encounter an enemy of the same level as Wang Shi again, he can gain more experience. But there is one more thing worth paying attention to at the moment. Chu Chen discovered that after the bat died, a trace of black substance clearly flew out of its body. The substance was only the size of a thumb and was now firmly attached to his jade shield. Strangeness. Chu Chen tried to operate the energy on the shield, and ripples of rock elements instantly surged out, washing away the strange substance into nothingness. He suddenly remembered that last night Mr. Xiang had sent him an attachment containing information about the monsters in the cave. It recorded that some monsters contained a strange substance in their bodies, which humans called resentment. Once they were killed, the resentment substance in their bodies might find the killer and contaminate him. Resentment is equivalent to a negative effect, which will weaken the power of the awakened person to a certain extent. According to the existing information, the pollution of resentment is also divided into levels. Generally, low-level pollution is not to be feared, and humans have mastered the methods to purify it. However, if the resentment pollution is moderate, it will be more troublesome, but it is also within a controllable range and will dissipate on its own with the passage of time. If the pollution is severe, it will be very troublesome. Not only will the resentment not dissipate on its own, it may even cause the awakened person to gradually lose his mind and become a violent beast. It seems that the thing attached to his shield just now was the so-called grudge. It originally wanted to contaminate himself, but was it blocked because of the shield? Chu Chen became more alert and continued to move deeper. Everything was quiet around him. According to the soldiers stationed here, the cave would only be explored once in a fixed period of time to see if there was any abnormal condition of the monsters in the cave. In other special circumstances, no one would enter, and only people like Chu Chen set a precedent for students to enter. Now he is more than 200 meters above the ground. 200 meters above, the sun is shining and the weather is hot. Other students are receiving systematic training. 200 meters below, it was dark, deep, and as cold as an ice cave, with countless magical beasts circling here. Few people would have thought that as one of the fortresses guarding important locations in the rear, there would actually be a group of terrifying monsters hidden under the ground. However, it is precisely because of this that the tyranny of the Legion stationed here is demonstrated. Even though they suppress the demon cave underground with one hand, they still resist the invasion of external alien races with the other hand. In the cave, there is absolute silence most of the time, and the atmosphere here is depressing. Even if there were no attacks from monsters, the dark and boundless space underground was enough to cause great psychological harm to ordinary people. However, all this was soon broken by a sound similar to that of a baby crying. It was so strange that in this dark cave, there was the sound of a baby crying. But it is not abrupt, and such weirdness matches the surrounding atmosphere. They were a group of dark shadows like wandering ghosts. If not for the light of the jade shield illuminating them, they would have blended perfectly into the surrounding darkness. No, it's not that perfect. After all, there is white light flowing on their faces. Chu Chen's light was too dazzling, and he instantly attracted the attention of these dark shadows. They were originally facing different directions, but at this moment they all focused their eyes on Chu Chen. The strange sound of the baby crying came from their mouths, although Chu Chen did not see where their mouths were. Not wanting to play the game of confrontation with them, Chu Chen took the lead in launching the attack. Rock ridges emerged from under the feet of the black shadows, and golden ripples spread in all directions, instantly shattering some of the weaker ones into ashes. Other black shadows swarmed forward, their strange attack methods varied, but the most common one was countless claw shadows waving in front of Chu Chen's eyes. Faced with the enemy's intensive attacks, he was too lazy to even take out his weapon. Only after the black shadow shortened the distance between him and him, the jade shield instantly turned into a golden blade and spread out in all directions. Explosions, flames, screams. No matter how many black shadows there are, it is useless. Under the area attack, they will eventually turn into fragments and dissipate. However, these black shadows all had resentment in their bodies. After they died, the resentment in their bodies densely attacked Chu Chen. However, these pollutants were quickly blocked by the new Yuzhang shield set up by Chu Chen, but even so, half of the shield was already covered by this dark substance. The sticky texture made Chu Chen frown. The newly generated shield did not last long before he turned it into an attack and spread it again. Only the broken limbs of the black shadows were left at his feet, and all the enemies here were wiped out by him. Just as Chu Chen was about to move further into the depths, he suddenly felt that a group of Qinyan troops he had sent out had encountered trouble. That was no ordinary monster, it contained invisible pressure. The sudden change made Chu Chen give up his plan to move forward. According to the resonant coordinates, he rushed towards the direction of the Qunyan army. Chapter 99. Somewhere in the demon cave the purple-black mist continued to surge, trapping the 3,000 rock army soldiers firmly in the mist. A huge figure slowly emerged from the mist. It was a demon beast wearing armor. Its body was as tall as a hill. It had only one eye on its entire face, and that eye almost filled up its entire face. The mouth was located at the lower jaw, and a fishy-smelling liquid was constantly dripping from it. The parts of the monster that were not covered by armor were covered with mottled scales and hideous bone spurs. Strands of blood-red lines spread across its skin, which was very strange. The warcraft roared, and its huge eyeball instantly shot out a red laser. The 3,000 Rock's soldiers formed a formation and tried their best to block it, but it was obvious that the level difference between them and the warcraft was too great. In a blink of an eye, the 2 Qunyan soldiers standing in the front row were beaten into pieces. The remaining Qunyan soldiers no longer continued to fight with the monsters, but tried their best to avoid the attacks of the monsters. Because its biggest function now is the coordinates. As long as it is still here, Chu Chen can rush over through resonance. Once it is also destroyed by the monster, the connection between the resonances will be cut off. The coordinates disappeared, and Chu Chen couldn't find this place accurately in this huge cave. The monster's attacks were very intensive. A series of lasers were continuously emitted from its eyeballs. The armor on Qunyan army was constantly shattered, and its body carved out of rock gradually began to become broken. However, even so, the Qunyan army is still trying its best to delay time. As long as they hold on for a while longer, the coordinates will continue to extend. The long period of time without destroying the enemy obviously made the monster irritable. It suddenly stretched out its 2 huge claws and began to wave them frantically at the 1,000 Rock's army. The claws were powerful and their speed was faster than a laser. Under such intensive attacks, the 1,000 Rock's army had reached its final limit. With the sound of the claws cutting through the air, the last 1,000 Rock's army soldier was finally turned into rubble and exploded. The pleasure of destroying the enemy obviously made the warcraft very happy. It stretched out its hand and looked at its claws. The scaly claws seemed particularly perfect in its eyes. It couldn't help but stretch out its other hand and stroke them gently. Boom! But in the next moment, a painful roar came out from the monster's mouth again, and a golden figure rushed directly in front of it. A golden arm hit the monster's chest hard, causing its huge body to fly backwards. It flew all the way to the distant cave wall, creating a huge hole. Chu Chen arrived at the coordinates at the last moment. The jade shield made him not afraid of the surrounding fog. His hands were already covered with golden rock elements, and there seemed to be faint scales emerging between the light. The monster crawled up from the ground again, but Chu Chen took off into the air again. Without relying on weapons, he relied entirely on his own strong physique to fight the monster head-on. Poor monster, it hadn't recovered from the last attack yet, and was knocked away by Chu Chen's punch again. In fact, Chu Chen already felt that while his physical strength was improving by leaps and bounds, the shape of his hands had changed slightly compared to normal human hands when they were attached with the rock element. He also knew that Emperor Rock King had the form of a dragon, and it seemed that as he continued to upgrade, he was also gradually unlocking new powers. But he didn't have time to think about it, as the monster crawled out from the ground again. Its 2 huge claws emitted a red light, and its terrifying aura caused the surrounding air to begin to tremble slightly. Chu Chen admitted that the monster in front of him was very strong. Perhaps its strength was at the forefront among those outside the cave. However, he is still some distance away from Wang Shi, not to mention being able to compete with him now. Chu Chen kicked up and forced the monster in front of him back again, and at the same time he grasped the clan longbow in his hand. Arrows formed by condensed energy began to appear on the drawn bowstring, and the power began to accumulate. After a moment, swoosh! A long, thin golden light suddenly shot out like lightning and arrived in front of the monster in almost the blink of an eye. It stretched out its arms to block, but the arrow penetrated all obstacles and finally sank into its huge eyeball. Extremely shrill screams began to come out of the monster's mouth, and thick blood flowed out of its eyeballs, but soon the second arrow came. The monster had no power to fight back in front of him, and its huge body finally collapsed under the powerful attack. Fortunately, the monster died without any signs of resentment. Chu Chen's experience points increased visibly. It turned out that only by defeating this type of monster could he be more efficient. Just as the trouble here was resolved, news came from a group of 1,000 Rock's troops sent out from the other side that they had also encountered an irresistible attack from magical beasts. However, Chu Chen was not surprised but happy about this. He was actually worried about the difficulty in finding this kind of magical beast. But before heading to the new coordinates, Chu Chen did not forget to summon out new 1,000 rock army and ordered them to continue advancing in this direction. Maybe we can find something. The group of Qinyan army that sent the coordinates was not far from where he was, and Chu Chen quickly rushed over. The monster here is a monster with a chicken head and a snake body. Its body is about the same size as the previous monster. Its snake-like body is covered with colorful feathers, which is very eye-catching. Now, only the last 1,000 rocks army that was fighting against the monster was left, waiting for Chu Chen's arrival. Thanks for your hard work. After taking back the damaged 1,000 rocks army, a fierce breathing sound came out from the monster's mouth, and its thick tail swung violently, carrying a layer of colorful halo that rippled out. Chu Chen did not dodge, allowing the opponent's attack to hit the shield. The rock-solid power was far beyond the ability of the monster in front of him to shake. The opponent's attack was completely ineffective against him. Chu Chen held the Qinyan spear in his hand and just waved it casually, puff blood flashed, and the terrifying force instantly cut through the body of the monster. The powerful force made the monster continue to retreat backwards. It flew for hundreds of meters until it crashed into a huge stone pillar and came to a sudden stop. But immediately afterwards, Chu Chen threw the spear in his hand, and a beam of golden light shot out, instantly chasing after the body of the monster. Boom! A huge roar was heard, and the snake body of the monster was directly pierced by the spear, and its body was split into two halves directly from the place where it was hit. Chapter 100. As the battle progressed, Chu Chen soon discovered a passage extending downward, which was the route to the next area of the magic cave. However, there is now a very powerful restriction at the entrance of this passage, and Chu Chen's current strength is unable to shake it at all. There was no way. The monsters on the next level would be even more powerful and terrifying. To be on the safe side, Xiang Hanhai only opened up access to the first level's external area for him, and access to the rest of that area remained prohibited. So even though he felt a little regretful, Chu Chen could only continue wandering around the first floor area. He didn't know how long he had been fighting until his cell phone started ringing. That was the alarm he had set in advance, and the time was 7 in the evening. Before he knew it, Chu Chen had already been training in this devil's cave for a whole day. After stretching for a long time, Chu Chen walked back in the direction he came from. Soon, he returned to the iron gate along the passage, and the soldier guarding there asked curiously, "You've finished your training? That's amazing. You don't seem to be injured." Chu Chen nodded, "Well, the monsters on the first level are better. I can still handle them." Hearing his words, the other soldiers gave him a thumbs up. After all, they did not dare to enter the Devil's Cave alone. "Student Chu Chen, you need to cooperate with us for an examination before you leave." At this time, several military doctors came over, holding various instruments in their hands. This is also one of the rules of the Magic Cave. As mentioned before, some monsters in the Magic Cave will have resentment after death, so every time someone comes out of the Magic Cave, they must undergo a thorough inspection to prevent being eroded by resentment. Chu Chen nodded in understanding and began to cooperate with the examination according to the military doctor's requirements. The test was very efficient, and soon, his inspection report was presented. "Is there any resentment? None. Erosion degree 0." Seeing this result, almost everyone present was surprised. Even though not every monster in the Magic Cave has the effect of resentment, after entering and training, they will definitely be more or less infected by some resentment. But Chu Chen was not affected at all. The probability of this happening is extremely small, even smaller than the chance of winning the lottery. "Sorry to bother you. Now the test results are out, and it seems that there is nothing wrong with me. I'll leave first." Seeing that everyone else was in a daze, Chu Chen didn't bother to waste too much time here. He greeted them and left. The military doctor holding the test report shook his head in disbelief and murmured, "Is it good luck? Or can you be immune to the erosion of resentment?" Chu Chen quickly returned to his dormitory. By this time, the other students should have finished their training. But what was strange was that when he entered the villa, he did not see any trace of Feng Xiaoqiu. But he didn't care too much about it. Maybe the boy went to the cafeteria or somewhere else. Chu Chen shrugged and was about to take a good bath when the doorbell rang. Hearing the voice, Chu Chen immediately opened the door, only to find that the person who came was actually Zhou Zhenglongping. To be honest, Chu Chen didn't feel that he had any deep connection with this guy. It was just a sparring match. How could the other party find him? The evidence shows that Long Ping did speak, but it was just a long paragraph of Japanese language that he couldn't understand. He quickly took out the translation earphones from his storage ring and put them back on his ears. Only then did he finally understand what the other party said. Chu Chen, your roommate Feng Xiaokai was accidentally injured during today's sparring and is now being treated in the hospital here. What? Hearing Long Ping's words, Chu Chen was stunned. Feng Xiaokai was beaten and sent to the hospital? Here's what happened. The witness Long Ping then began to tell the story. According to his words, Chu Chen also understood that one of the training contents of the other students today was to compete with each other. This was supposed to be a limited exchange, but Feng Xiaokai's opponent didn't know what was going on, and the power of his attack far exceeded the scope of the rules. Although the instructor stopped him in time, Feng Xiaokai still inevitably suffered some injuries. And Feng Xiaokai's opponent is Qi Hong, who ranks after you. Is it him? Chu Chen frowned and asked, isn't that guy a natural talent? Feng Xiaokai's talent is not equal to his. Why would they arrange for a competition between the two of them? This is also the rule of the special training camp. Because the number of awakened people of different qualifications is not equal, it is impossible to arrange for all students to compete with opponents of the same qualifications. It was Qi Hong who first proposed it. He said that he could fight without using supernatural powers and simply control the power of the flesh. He also said that he would be careful about the degree. Zhu Longping was also somewhat puzzled, and then said, in fact, before he sparred with Feng Xiaokai, he had already sparred with other students. Everything went smoothly without any accidents. That guy controlled his strength very well. No one expected that he would suddenly go berserk and have such a thing happen. By the way, I still remember when we gathered this morning, that guy was asking around why you didn't participate in the training. Well, I think Feng Xiaokai is your roommate after all, so I'd better tell you about this. Long Ping finished speaking, but Chu Chen's brows became more and more furrowed. There was no surprise at all. It was obvious that Qi Hong was coming for him. But he didn't participate in the training today, so he shifted his target to Feng Xiaokai. Because he was his roommate? Where is that Qi Hong? He should be in his dormitory now, but I heard that the higher UPS are preparing to punish him for what happened today. This is evidenced by Long Ping. Take me to see Feng Xiaokai first. Chu Chen's expression gradually became gloomy. Under the guidance of Zhou Zheng Long Ping, he soon arrived at the hospital not far from the dormitory area. Feng Xiaokai was indeed lying on the hospital bed, with some parts of his body wrapped in bandages. It seemed that he had received timely treatment and he did not look seriously injured. Brother Chu. Were you injured by Qi Hong? Chu Chen sighed. Ah? You know it now. I don't know what happened either. That guy seemed to have gone crazy all of a sudden. But luckily, the instructor stopped him in time. I'm fine. By the way, that guy kept asking me why you didn't come. But it's a blessing in disguise. I don't have to participate in today's training, haha. Feng Xiaokai was quite optimistic, but Chu Chen felt uncomfortable because he was the one who suffered the misfortune. He did not stay for too long. His main purpose in coming here was to verify whether what Long Ping said was true or not. Long Ping. Take me to Qi Hong's dormitory. Chu Chen's eyes began to light up uncontrollably.
If you're enjoying the story so far and want to hear the next parts, don't forget to like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you'd like me to continue the series, drop a comment below letting me know. Your feedback and support keep these audiobooks going strong. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.